It is Free Talk Live at the Porcupine Freedom Festival, also known as Forkfest, as I like to call it, because, realistically, the Porcupine Freedom Festival is something going on down there, and I still have not yet made my way down there to it. Have you, Angie?
I have. I have been down there a couple of times. I've been on a couple of talks. I was on the Meet the Regions and the Monadnock region. So I was
that's
able,
right.
Yeah, I was able to plug Free Talk Live a handful of times in our region and all of the stuff we do there.
Okay, awesome. Have you been down there to just, enjoy the festivities or whatever is going on?
I have not gone to any of the other talks. I did volunteer some just to registration, and there are a ton of people. They said we were about 85% capacity right now at Rogers.
Wow, already?
Which is really good. And that was yesterday, which was Wednesday.
Okay, yeah, and definitely there are more people showing up every minute, just vehicles going by. There's significantly more people walking around today than there even were yesterday.
Yeah, and yesterday definitely looked like a Saturday.
It's ramping up considerably. It's going
exciting.
to be an enormous festival.
And a lot of people are staying, after the Pork Fest ends for Fork Fest, which is phenomenal. Yeah.
Okay.
I've met quite a few that are like, yeah, I'm staying. I can't wait. I'm not leaving. They won't stay the whole time.
Sure.
But they'll be here, the first few days during it.
Okay, well, that's good news, because I've been going around looking at these, they put orange stickers on the back windows of their vehicles. And I haven't seen that many that are staying beyond, like, June the 28th or June the 29th. So it's good to hear that people are planning to stay for,
Maybe
the cool
ones,
kids after party.
Yeah, maybe the ones that are staying are the ones that are just kind of landing when they get here. They're riding up with somebody, or they're getting a ride, and they're just kind of staying, and they have nothing else that they want to go do because they want to stay here and party with us.
Awesome. Well, Forkfest is not at capacity as far as I know, and you're still invited to join us. It's June the 28th through July the 4th, and I'm looking forward to it because Forkfest always has a very different vibe when it's just Forkfest versus the Porcupine Freedom Festival is a lot more family friendly than Forkfest is.
It is. That's a good way to put it.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Each event has their space, and this is something for me to consider because I've been looking around thinking, is there really any point in continuing to have Forkfest happen after the Porcupine Freedom Festival when they could just happen concurrently?
Well, I think there is, and I believe there is because people like to not be told what to do. They don't want somebody saying, hey, you have to have a bracelet. Hey, you have to have a ticket. You can't go to these bathrooms because you're not VIP or anything like that. And at Forkfest, you just kind of come and you get to be you and you get to do exactly what makes you happy.
That's very true. I mean, that's the whole reason that Forkfest was born, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's partially because, they banned Ian Freeman and therefore Free Talk Live. But that only lasted for like a year. But there was still an almost oppressive vibe during the Porcupine Freedom Festival because they had the entire campground reserved. And you had to jump through all of these hoops. You had to buy a ticket for the Porcupine Freedom Festival to even be at the campground while it was happening.
And they were, they had some issues with a poker game a couple of years ago, and they tried to kick people off, and then they and then they let them back on. It was all because of a sign that was religious based. That was something about why do you believe or something like that, and someone was upset about it, and so they kicked them off at like 2:00 in the morning, and they let them come back on, but they could only stay on their site. They couldn't go off of their site.
Wow, I had not heard about that. But, I mean, that was the old Porcupine Freedom Festival. It has changed significantly. But there used to be pork rangers.
There are still pork rangers.
Yeah, but, they were perpetually in the way. In the past. I mean, just constantly driving up and down, patrolling like police.
And in your business.
And they acted like police
Someone
officers.
told me that we should cop block the pork rangers this year.
They were cop blocked at one point. At the very first Forkfest or Somalia Fest, however you want to characterize it, that I was ever at, it was still taking place prior to the Porcupine Freedom Festival. It was like a 3-day event at that point.
Yep.
Just sort of people who arrived early to have a good time. It was a pre-party back then, and now it's an after-party. But it was Davy Barker who ran off with several others to go cop block the pork rangers.
And how did that go? Do you have any idea?
I don't know because, it was my first night here. I had never even been to New Hampshire at that point, much less to the Porcupine Freedom Festival or Forkfest. I had no idea who any of these people were or what was going on. And then I'm like, we're going cop blocking, and off they go. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool.
Yep.
And I think it was 2 years ago, the last time that the Porcupine Freedom Festival was really the oppressive regime that it was. I was hanging out in my hotel room. This was the last time that Forkfest took place prior to the Porcupine Freedom Festival, actually. I was hanging out at my hotel room, and whoever it was who was in charge of the pork rangers that year was expressing frustration to someone else about how she had, quote, no jurisdiction to tell anyone what they could and couldn't do because it was still Forkfest.
Oh.
And Porcupine Freedom Festival hadn't started. I mean, just hearing this, quote, libertarian express frustration about not having jurisdiction.
Control.
Yeah. And control.
When someone gets just a little bit of, authority, it goes to their head and they're like, oh, I can do and say whatever I like because I'm in control.
And attendance was way down that year.
It was.
And it was way down the year before. And now, with the Porcupine Freedom Festival being open and essentially just being something that happens down there at Rogers Campground, attendance is at 85% capacity.
Already.
It also helps that, Free Talk Live is back, and it's neat how that happened. I don't know to what extent Free Talk Live is actually responsible for it, but when they kicked Free Talk Live off of, the Porcupine Freedom Festival, attendance plummeted.
Yeah.
And then once we were allowed back, attendance started climbing again.
Imagine that.
Now, correlation doesn't necessarily equal causation, but it's not a bad thing for us to be able to point out.
I have noticed that there are a lot of people who have shown up for someone named Dave Smith. Who does a podcast, or he's some kind of libertarian comedian.
Okay.
And there are a lot of first timers that I deal cards, and I'll say, well, where'd you hear about it? And they're like, Dave Smith. And I have no idea who that is.
He's the libertarian comedian.
Okay.
He's not Canadian.
Okay.
He is.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, he is. I thought you said he's a Canadian.
No, he's a libertarian.
Oh, comedian.
Comedian, yeah. No.
Every inch of him a New Yorker.
I was like, all right, Lee,
every
thanks.
last bit of him, as much as we would like him to come to the Free State, he is every bit of him a New Yorker.
He will not come, but his show is today, right?
So, yeah, he's been part of this whole, this Mises Caucus takeover of the Libertarian Party, which, basically a bunch of actual libertarians got tired of the Libertarian Party being not libertarian.
Okay.
So
that hasn't really been my understanding of it. I realize that's how they're painting it, but I was part of the Mises Caucus when they first formed, and it took about 2 weeks for me to disassociate from them.
Why did you disassociate?
Because they're about as close to alt-right as one can be without actually being alt-right.
Okay.
A lot of people like to call them racist and things like that. I don't think they're racist, but they're very conservative socially.
Okay.
And that, to me, conflicts spiritually with the idea of libertarianism, which should be socially liberal, in my opinion.
Makes sense.
They paint it themselves as being, all about the economic right and focus entirely on economics, but these are the Hoppian libertarians. They're all about being able to forcefully remove elements of society that they don't like.
Well, from one's own personal property. I mean, if your neighbor's dog is pooping on your lawn, you can remove the dog from your lawn. I mean, you mix your labor with that bit of nature, and if something's on it that you don't want on it, you are allowed to move it from that.
I understand that, but in a world where the state currently exists and we have a libertarian party attempting to, take control of the state, I would rather that not be the libertarians who are advocates of physical removal who become the ones to seize the state's power. I would rather it be ones who are against physical removal. Because with the worldview that we're in, the state is ultimately the controller of all property. If they control the state, then they control all property. If they want to get rid of the gay people, it's our property. We're the government now.
Let's remove them.
Well, but they're personal property advocates. So there would be there would be no state property under a Mises leadership if that were even possible.
So it would just all be personal property.
Then why are they seeking power?
Why are they seeking power? Well,
the same reason everyone else seeks power, to use it.
No, honestly, if there was a chance that he would actually become the president of the United States, there's no chance Dave Smith would run. None. No,
he's
up there for the very specific purpose.
I'm talking about the Mises Caucus in general. Why do they exist, and why are they seeking power?
Well, as far as why they exist, I think the most important part of why they exist is for messaging. Because
that's doable outside of the party apparatus.
Oh, sure.
We've been doing that at Free Talk Live for the better part of 2 decades.
The biggest libertarian movements have always been when there's a focal point of politics, like Ron Paul, for example.
Yeah, and Ron Paul has some pretty severe problems, like allowing people to perpetually write things in his name that he may or may not endorse. More coming up from Fort Fest 2021. This is Free Talk Live.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover brings her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live from Fork Fest 5 2021 here at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. I look forward to this festival every year. Every year, as soon as it ends, I'm like, yes, let's do it again. And then I spend the entirety of the next 50 weeks looking forward to it. And, you know, that's not a bad thing. It's a great place to be.
It always amazes me when people are like, wow, you're staying for the whole 2 weeks? And I'm like, I'd stay for the whole 52 weeks if we could have a free market that long.
Yeah, It is nice. It's frustrating for me. You mentioned the free market. Obviously, there's a lot of USD being spent here. I'm restricted primarily to using USD. I can also use goldbacks.
God, that's gotta sting.
It is awful, man.
They let you use goldbacks.
Well, they can't stop me from using goldbacks.
All right, okay, yeah, no, that would be a brutal legal battle that they would lose. Like that one's actually written in.
Yeah.
On like literally every level of government that you're allowed to do that. So.
But what I'm not allowed to do is use cryptocurrency, which is frustrating because almost every vendor here, I'm told, accepts cryptocurrency. I was told previously that there wasn't a very high acceptance level because people were a little gun shy based on the fact that, some of crypto's biggest advocates were just, arrested by the FBI, and others are AWOL. But from what I've seen and heard since, there are plenty of vendors here accepting cryptocurrency.
Oh, definitely.
But it doesn't do me any good because I'm limited to USD and goldbacks.
Yep.
And if you're wondering what we're talking about, check out bitcoin.com. It's got everything you need to learn about cryptocurrency, including the basics. There's several short videos there if you just want to learn what is Bitcoin, how does it work, what is this technology. It's world-changing, and you should know about it by this point. And if you do already know about it, check out the news articles at news.bitcoin.com. There's something for everyone, all on a sleek and easy-to-use website, bitcoin.com. It's the best place to learn about cryptocurrency. Now, before we got into that, we were discussing a question that I've always found interesting. Why do libertarians run for office? And this is, I've run for office, sure. And to me, it's sort of a conundrum. We want to put people in power so that they...
To remove power, yeah.
Yes, to remove power. And I'm not sure to what extent I really trust a lot of libertarians to do that, because every revolutionary has said, hey, we're going to seize power so that we can bring power to the people, or so that we can free the people, or have a socialist utopia or whatever, and it doesn't ever work out that way.
Well, I think one of the things that that is very different from those that have seized power to give it to the people is that their philosophy is bonkers. I mean, it simply does not hold together. And like, dude, libertarians are autistic in our desire for consistency. No, this must hold together, which leads to some weird places conversationally. Because like, if they say a thing and you go, well, what about this? They'll stick to it. And
I don't think there's anything autistic about desiring consistency out of a philosophy. And Mark, just the whole time he's been here, he repeatedly referred to libertarians as, just screeching autists. Like, look, not all libertarians are autistic. In fact, the vast majority of libertarians I know are not autistic.
Yeah, I'm not meaning that as a medical diagnosis.
Every freaking libertarian just beats that dead horse of autistic libertarians. And can we just stop doing it?
Well, no. So in this context, it refers to a sort of extreme detail-oriented. Like you are willing and even desirous to get deep down into the weeds of a particular subject, far beyond what most people are usually willing to go to.
Well, that's just fascinating. I mean, we don't call biologists autistic because they're deeply fascinated by biology, or marine biologists autistic because they're deeply fascinated by marine biology, nor are physicists.
Do you have a better term for when you are willing to get way too into the particular details of and deep into the weeds on a very specific tiny thing for most people's taste?
Autistic is not the word I would use, certainly. Detail-oriented or interested in a particular subject, perhaps?
So you don't like the thing, but you don't have anything to replace it. Well, why don't you go back to the left then?
Well, autistic is a mental diagnosis that a lot of people actually, suffer from, or a behavioral diagnosis. So when I call someone a
psycho, I'm not usually saying that they are literally a psychopath, but I'm saying that there are traits that we associate with that are on display.
Well, see, when I call someone a psychopath, I mean that they're a psychopath. They lack empathy for other human beings. I don't generally call people psychopaths unless they exhibit psychopathic characteristics, and I don't call people autistic unless they are autistic. Well, being libertarian isn't really enough to warrant being called autistic.
Oh, definitely. And it's literal versus figurative. So figurative autism doesn't actually have anything to do with any kind of diagnosis of being on the spectrum, but it does have to do with a tendency toward a detail oriented in a single tiny subject. Okay,
I guess what I object to then is the use of autism as some sort of insult or demeaning way of describing people who are fixated on or who are fascinated by a particular subject. Knowing people who are autistic, I mean, that is legitimately, you might as well just call people retards if you're going to equate fascination with a subject as being autism.
Well, and it's not just fascination with a subject, but like, so, for example, autistic savants will have a tendency to have a particular thing that they are extremely knowledgeable about, but that knowledge doesn't really spread over to other areas.
Sure.
And it's a reference to that.
Well, that's specialization. Like a biochemist would be great at biochemistry, but I wouldn't expect them to know much about astronomy. So maybe hyper-specialized
might be a better term then. And there also is the implication of poor social skills.
Yes, libertarians do tend to have poor social skills. I'll definitely give you that. When they tend to operate on a very cold, emotionless basis in their worldview, which is fascinating to me because there's nothing cold or unemotional about the Austrian economics that, built much of modern libertarian philosophy. It's all about the individual's desires and choices. Mm-hmm. And libertarianism is all about the individual's desires and choices. It's why we prefer the free market over, closed markets like we have with governments. Mm-hmm. And here at ForkFest, you do have the closest thing that you can get to a free market. Mm-hmm. And it's beautiful. I mean, you can barter. I managed to acquire silver yesterday and could spit it anywhere here. I imagine it's about anywhere here.
Just about, yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing.
It really is.
And if you don't like gold, or you don't like silver, you don't like cryptocurrency, I don't know what to tell you. Every vendor here will accept Federal Reserve notes, war dollars, if you insist on paying in that. But why would you when you have a number of alternatives available that don't, fund the war machine? But back to the question, there are maybe 5 libertarians I would trust to actually be elected to a position of power and fulfill their promise to either diffuse that power or to just not exercise that power. Mm. The vast majority of them, I think, would get a taste of it and would enjoy it and would fall into the status mentality of, oh, no, I don't want to give this up. This is too good. I can make the world better.
Yeah, Karen Ann Harlow was talking yesterday or the day before, and that was one of the things she pointed out is that what she's seen is that when people get into a position in the Libertarian Party, like after like 3 years tops, like they start to go nuts, and like the power actually gets to them, and they start getting a big head about the whole thing.
Yeah.
So just like the market, we need churn.
Yeah, and power corrupts, and the market is the best way of decentralizing that and opening things up for competition and for change and steady, robust growth. More coming up from ForkFest 2021. This is Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
On March 16th this year, government task forces violently raided the New Hampshire Bitcoin Embassy, the Mighty Moose Mart, the homes of Aria DiMezzo, Andy and Renee Spinella, Colleen Fordham, a grandmother, and perhaps most relevant, the studios of Free Talk Live. The Crypto Six were arrested. 4 were released on bail conditions, but Ian Freeman was held hostage for 69 days. Rich Paul, also known as Nobody, remains captive. We've consulted attorneys who say no crime even appears to have been committed. But that didn't stop the Joint Thug Task Force from ripping out wires from our broadcast stacks, taking Free Talk Live off the air, resulting in a violation of our and your First Amendment rights. You can visit thecrypto6.com to help, but as importantly, contact other media and tell them about this outrage. This case is likely to set precedent for cryptocurrency use well into your future. Help our fight for liberty and financial freedom at thecrypto6.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 28th through July 4th for ForkFest 2021 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. ForkFest happens the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and ForkFest is decentralized, which means no one is in charge. That also means there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 28th through July 4th. Where better to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire? You can relax and enjoy the camaraderie of like-minded people, or you can create whatever experience or event you'd like others to have. If you're planning an event for ForkFest, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with fellow ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the ForkFest forum. Links to those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. Mark your calendar for June 28th through July 4th, 2021. We'll see you at forkfest.party.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live here at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. There's still time if you want to come check out ForkFest. It is lasting until July the 4th, and you are definitely invited. There's no tickets. All you have to do is show up and get your camping site, RV site, or motel room. You can find out more at forkfest.party. We're here until then. With you from Rogers Campground today, it's Aria.
And Beagless Mountaineer.
And we've been talking about libertarians in general. And, you know, the news broke yesterday. John McAfee is dead.
Oh, man.
And
you know, a drug-fueled existence can't last forever.
Well, not when he made it to like, what, 74, 75 years old?
Yep.
He's an old dude to be doing that much cocaine.
Yes, he is.
But hey, Ozzy made it, and he's probably done a bit more cocaine than even John McAfee.
That's probably true.
So John McAfee was being held.
It must be the bat heads, you know, that it has a synthetic emergence of drug power.
And if not that, then hookers. Definitely hookers.
Could be the hookers.
So he was being held in a Spanish jail awaiting extradition to the United States, and the Spanish court ruled to extradite him. He was then found dead in his cell. Now, this raises a lot of questions because McAfee has been posting all over the internet about how he would never kill himself, right?
Which I believe. That man loves living.
Well, but do you love living enough to be 70-something years old and spending the rest of your life in prison? So, I mean, what's the point of life at that point? So I don't know if he killed himself or not, but I do know that John McAfee is the type of guy who would spend months saying he wasn't going to kill himself just so that he could later kill himself and create all manner of crazy conspiracy theories about whether or not he actually killed himself. Because John McAfee is that special type of lunatic.
He was a wacky dude.
He was.
Yeah,
I loved him to death.
He had
Man,
this
he was
weird
nuts.
combination of complete bat-ass insanity and at the same time coherent philosophy that he would he'll put the coherent philosophy down on the website and it's like, oh, well, that's brilliant and simple. And then you hear him talk and it's like, oh, wow.
And then next thing you know, he's talking about having sex with whales. And it all makes sense if you understand John McAfee. It's like, yep, that's John McAfee. always crazy. I don't think he killed himself, though. I don't think he's even dead. I think he faked his own death to avoid having to eat a certain part of his body on national television. That's my conspiracy theory. He's really alive, but he doesn't want to do that.
I appreciate that perspective, and that is now part of my worldview. Thank you.
Yeah, anytime.
And honestly, I mean, he had the resources to at least have a good shot at pulling something like that off.
He does. I mean, he at one point said on Twitter, I think, that the U.S. government took everything from him, and that's probably true. But did they get his cryptocurrency?
Yeah, that's my thought. It's like, dude,
and he's John McAfee.
Seriously.
Whatever they took from him, he could earn back.
Right.
Because he's done that repeatedly over the course of his life. Where he came back to the United States broke with like $20 to his name.
Yeah, I mean, that guy made himself rich back when you couldn't just like, oh, well, I'm going to buy some Bitcoin now and wait a year and a half and, oh, look, it doubled. Like, he was able to make himself fabulously wealthy before you could do crazy stuff like that.
Yeah, so I can't imagine how wealthy he really was or how much of it the U.S. government actually seized. But ultimately, his death, assuming he is dead, and, I'm joking when I say he faked his own death. He is probably dead, and he probably did kill himself, and he probably did spend months saying he wouldn't kill himself just so that people would then speculate after his death that he was actually killed by the U.S. government because he's freaking John McAfee and he's crazy.
I'm honestly keeping open the window that he might just show up. Honestly,
yeah, I mean, he certainly faked his own arrest once just to see if the media would spread the story, and they did. So maybe he faked his own death just to see if the media would spread the story. I don't think that's the case. But it's hard to know with the giant question mark and just general confusion that is John McAfee the person. So who the hell knows?
So how officially did he die? Like, what is their
There's been no
story?
investigation yet. And of course, if there is an investigation, it will be the prison guards investigating or the prison investigating his death.
And was he in fact missing a part of his anatomy and he just finally fulfilled the bet, was all?
Well, it's speculated that he hung himself. And, much like Epstein did not, as John McAfee would have said. Who knows, though? I mean, it sucks because I do believe he's dead. And, we lost a wonderful human being and a truly special, unique person.
And a spectacular entertainer.
He is, but also shady.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't want to, idolize him after his death, but I will never forget receiving messages from John McAfee attempting to shill some sort of scam coin to me. And as I asked questions about it, I'm like, hey, this doesn't even sound legitimate. None of this sounds right. Who owns the private keys here? And he was like, I'm just trying to help you make money. Okay, I get that, but you're asking me for money in the process. He ended up blocking me as a result of my questioning him about this.
How dare you ask me questions about my scam coin?
So he was certainly a shady guy, but even then he could have earned back whatever the U.S. government took for him simply by agreeing to shill more of these scam coins because there are plenty. And hey, here's $25,000. Tweet about us. Talk about us. He was certainly willing to do it.
Yeah. And when you have that well known of a name, especially in a pertinent circle like libertarianism when it comes to cryptocurrency, yeah, you can turn that into some quick cash.
I was really hoping he was going to run for president in 2020 and then in 2024, but that's not the world that we live in, and now he's dead, and that sucks. Cryptocurrency lost a powerful advocate.
Hey, I wouldn't put it past him, honestly. For all we know,
let's run John McAfee for 2024. Let's do it.
I'm telling you. And for all I know, he has some pre-recorded message that will suddenly get released to announce his run for presidency, whether he's alive or not.
I know in 2020 or 2019, before he messaged me about that crypto nonsense that turned out to be, a scam coin, he was messaging me. He wanted people to walk around wearing essentially iPads in front of their faces so that he could interact with people on the streets. And you were going to be the robot walking around for him so that he could communicate with people directly because he couldn't be in the United States. And I was like, just bizarre. The most McAfee thing I'd ever heard, right?
I can think of an amount of money that I'd be willing to carry around an iPad for you.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't willing to do it because that's just not how I do things, but a truly, truly unique individual. That there is no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And an excellent advocate for liberty, despite being really new to the Libertarian Party. Was it 2016 that he ran? Or 2012?
I'm not sure.
I don't recall either, but whatever year it was that he ran, it was against Gary Johnson and that Peterson dude, the irrelevant Republican, whatever his name is.
Let's see. Yeah, I think that would have been 2016.
And I wasn't even going to watch the presidential debates among the libertarians because I was like, they're libertarians. What could they possibly disagree about? That's how, right? I was
really?
Like,
oh, come on. Watching libertarian debates is great.
Yes, I did.
What's next? A license for my own damn toaster?
Yes, but I didn't know that then, right? I was like, they're just going to apply the non-aggression principle to every issue, and then there's nothing to really debate about. I went in.
Wouldn't that be nice?
That's what I expected. I went in supporting Gary Johnson, not knowing that much about him. And within 10 minutes of hearing him talk, I was like, nope, I am not supporting this guy. And Austin Peterson was just as bad in different directions. Then you had John McAfee there, who was just consistently applying the non-aggression principle. And I was like, yep, that's my guy right there. And of course, I was a tech person, so I already knew who John McAfee was and, followed him. And then he started talking about having sex with whales. And I was like, yep, that's my president. that crazy one over there. Not the one with the boot on his head. The next one, the other crazy one, the one doing bath salts. That's my president. Oh man, it could have been such an amazing world if McAfee had won in 2016. And everyone's like, no, we need Gary Johnson because he's going to be the most presentable. And I'm like, and
that's why I am super jazzed about the takeover of the Libertarian Party, so that they don't run bloody Gary Johnsons and stuff anymore.
They should have. In a world where the two most senile people in the United States ran against each other for president, the Libertarians are the crazy ones for not putting the guy with the boot on his head as their nominee.
Oh yeah.
More coming up from Fork Fest. This is Free Talk Live.
Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what the readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. freedomsphoenix.com, constantly providing the information, the real news about government policies, and the real relationship we all have with the coercive government. The real condition of the economy, innovations in technology, breakthroughs in energy, health, and computer science. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media. The corporate media, nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but now there's an alternative. freedomsphoenix.com. Constant news updates on the issues that affect your life in the most important ways. With liberty and property under constant attack, freedomsphoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda, and it encourages the participation of its readers. Go to freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. freedomsphoenix.com. The revolution between the ears has already happened.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover brings her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Free speech is protected on the internet, right? Not always. Government agencies try to limit free speech and commerce on the net. Luckily, when they do, the Institute for Justice is there to defend your First Amendment right to free speech. IJ helped set the first federal precedent for internet free speech in 1999, and ever since has worked to prevent unconstitutional roadblocks in cyberspace. Visit our website today at ij.org.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live from the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire at Rogers Campground. You've got to get down here and join us. It's a beautiful day. The wind is blowing through. There's nowhere else on earth that is a better place to be. They're surrounded by something like 2,000-ish other libertarians is what I'm expecting so far. And it's only Thursday.
Yeah.
You know, Friday and Saturday are going to be insanely busy. We're at 85% capacity right now. And I know that they have sold enough tickets to where they're not even selling day passes for Saturday because it's Rogers Campground itself is at capacity as of Saturday. So it's going to be interesting to see that many libertarians all congregating in a single place, and lots of awesome, interesting people to talk to, such as Connor here, who is of the AmericansForFairTreatment.org. Now, can you tell me about this? Your sign over there talks about public sector unions. Can you describe what that is to me?
Correct, yeah. So what we do at Americans for Fair Treatment is we help public sector employees, current and former, move from a place of union dependence to a place of union independence. So that can take a lot of forms, but what we are really passionate about is the constitutional rights of all these individuals who are unfortunately violated on a regular basis by public sector unions. So teachers unions, any other union that represents government employees.
So police unions, teacher unions, all of those sorts of things.
Absolutely.
They're exploiting the members of their unions, essentially?
Yeah, you know, there are so many different situations that come up, and sometimes it's as simple as, hey, I want to leave the union, and the union won't let me leave. And other times it's as complicated as people have been siphoning money out of the union pot, right? Taking all this money from teachers, from firefighters, from nurses, and spending it on things like themselves or politics, both of which really get people worked up for very good reason, right? Money's coming out of your paycheck. You want to have a say in what happens with that.
And with these public sector unions, they often don't. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
I've never been part of a union. Mm-hmm. I have no idea how they really function, except that, you know, there's probably a fair bit of underhandedness going on in there with how funds are being used and all of that. I know that companies in general don't like it when their employees unionize, but, you know, they realistically can't stop it. So,
I've been generally pro-union, but like everything else, the government tends to get involved and muck it up.
Yep. I mean, it's unfortunate, right? I mean, I think what we'd say is we deal specifically with public sector unions, which adds a couple additional wrinkles.
Yeah,
right?
I always thought that was the weirdest idea in the first place. Like, okay, isn't the whole point of a union that, like, you have these greedy capitalists that are taking all your excess labor, and aren't you supposed to be, like, you know, represented by the government, and therefore wouldn't need a union in any of the public sector things? And apparently that's not the way they feel.
Well, it's a real shame too, because if you think about it, when public sector unions, really what unions do really well is they create tension. right, between management and between employees. And what they say is, hey, listen, we're going to help ease this out because the management has certain wishes, the employees have certain wishes. So we're going to have a finite resource to pull from, which is the constraint that you have to bargain on all of these wages and benefits. Unfortunately, when you get government involved, it's the unions that are helping elect the very politicians that they then sit across the table from and negotiate against. So the members and the taxpayers are unfortunately left either at the whim of these very powerful organizations or, in the case of the taxpayers, footing the bill with very little say and very little oversight, which is very concerning.
And I know one of the major objections a lot of people have to unions is that they will use their union dues to support politics that they disagree with.
Yeah.
And I mean, it sounds like when they're negotiating in the public sector, like you don't have like a limited amount of dollars that you're actually negotiating for because it's government.
Right.
If they're underfunded, they'll just get more funding.
Yeah, taxes work like that, right? There's this huge pot of money, which is the American public. And one of the things that happens there, too, is it becomes very partisan. And we'd say at Americans for Fair Treatment, your right to join a union is really important, but so is the right to leave or step away from, especially if the organization isn't representing your best interests.
Sure.
So you see roughly...
I mean, like anything, it seems like it would be ideal to have, competing unions within a company.
Yeah,
that way a person can, vote with their wallet and give their money to whichever union they believe best represents them.
Yeah. So the practice that you're talking about is something called exclusive representation, where a union comes in and they earn the right to bargain on behalf of every single employee. And what that means is they can't have competition. There are no competing unions, so it gives them a tremendous amount of power.
Right.
This is something that's being challenged in the courts, but the Supreme Court just 2 weeks ago refused to hear a case challenging exclusive representation. So for at least for the time being, unions kind of have this really powerful tool in their back pocket, which is even if you leave the union, right? You can opt out. Any government employee can opt out of the union, remove the money going from your paycheck to the union. But even if you leave, the union still gets to represent you at the bargaining table, which is crazy.
That's
a big
crazy.
problem.
So they get to use you as a bargaining chip, whether you like it or not, simply because you work for the same company or institution that this union supposedly represents.
Right. Exactly.
And is there any hope? You said the Supreme Court just declined to hear a case. Is there any? Do you know why they declined to hear it? I mean, I know the Supreme Court is full of all sorts of legal nonsense, but
So this is political. We won't hear it.
Right.
Everything's political. What are you?
Yeah. The Supreme Court's notoriously tight-lipped about why they decline to hear cases. So it could be that they're waiting for another case that fits a better set of facts. But it's also could be the case that they're sitting around and we call it counting to five, right? If they can't count to five because it's this jockeying to say, hey, could we put together a majority? And if they can't get enough people on that train, they're not going to take the case because it could set precedent. There is a silver lining, right? I'm an optimist. I'd really fight for that.
That's good. I mean, it's good to be optimistic.
I try, right? I'm sitting in beautiful New Hampshire. It's sunny, right? Like I don't have a lot to complain about right now. But there's also good news for public sector employees, which is that there are union officials who are standing up. There's a guy out in California, the brand new president of SEIU 1000, and he ran on a platform that said, we are going to disaffiliate from the national union. We are going to 100% stop all political contributions. And he otherwise just said, hey, I'm going to be about my members instead of about this big political machine. So the forces come from inside. And then every government employee should know they also have the power to remove the financial means of the organizations if they are not serving them. You can opt out. That's something that we do at Americans for Fair Treatment is help people opt out. Fill out a one-page form. We'll walk you through all the steps just to make sure that your rights are protected and your freedoms are protected.
Now, how many different public sector unions are there? I mean, we mentioned teachers unions. There's obviously, I'm sure there's fire unions and But what other types are there? Are there like city clerk unions or anything?
Are.
There are.
Yeah, judicial clerk union. There's any government employee can be unionized. So you have all of these unions all across the country, many of them. So I'm not even sure I can put a solid number to it.
Wow, I would not have expected there to be that many public sector unions. I mean, especially for the clerks and judicial unions and things like that.
I didn't expect it, but now that I think about it, I should have, because I mean, you've got money and power, and that's always going to attract people to put the work in. And oh, look, now I get to represent so many people, whether they like it or not. and most of them are giving me money to do so. And that means I can pay this politician, so I have even more political power.
We call it the vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Because it is. It's absolutely vicious, and unfortunately, it's the teachers and these... Because I think there's a big difference. People often conflate, like, teachers with teachers' unions. And they say, oh, well, teachers and teachers' unions are the same thing. But unfortunately, most teachers' voices are being subdued by the union that claims to represent them. And many of them, the balance between, I'm going to say just broad strokes, conservatives and liberals is much closer to 50-50. But the amount of political money is spent is 97% toward Democrats, which is just on its face something that tells me these organizations are not representing their members in the best way possible.
Well, I mean, a teachers' union shouldn't be donating to political campaigns in the first place. But, I mean, obviously they're going to. Now, AmericasForFairTreatment.org is what you represent. And you mentioned you help people opt out, which means they stop paying their dues, right? Is there some sort of infrastructure you have to help people not claim to be represented by these various unions that aren't actually representing them after they've opted out?
Yeah, so we do a few things, right? Our mission is, educating and empowering public sector employees. We actually run a community program. So one of the things I want to give unions credit for doing one thing, and that is creating a community. It's always nice to have people who support and will stand behind you. And, that idea of union solidarity. So we actually have a community. Once folks have opted out, they can be a free member with us. They get many of the same perks. We can help them get liability insurance, all of these things that a union might provide. And we can do it without all of the, moral issues that people might come across. So yes, after folks have opted out, we have a community support, and we also refer folks to free legal help. Because unfortunately, that's another situation that comes up. There's a lot of legal issues, so we have an array of organizations, and we'll put you in touch with the best one for free.
Awesome. That's AmericasForFairTreatment.org. Thank you so much for joining us today, Connor. That's AmericasForFairTreatment.org. More coming up. This is Free Talk Live.
A newly recruited search and rescue officer, Marshall Hunter was resigned to a life of rescuing wayward spacefarers and derelict satellites. But when a billionaire couple goes missing, his own ship is disabled during the rescue. With communication satellites suddenly failing and lunar mineral shipments disappearing in transit, the crew suspects it's more than a coincidence, and Hunter must choose between salvation and sacrifice to save his crewmates and their civilian charges. Frontier by Patrick Childs and BingBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Bitcoin.com has launched a trading platform at local.bitcoin.com, allowing you to buy or sell Bitcoin Cash via dozens of payment methods like PayPal, Venmo, bank deposit, remittances, or meeting in person with cash. There are no ID requirements to sign up for and use the site, and all communications between buyers and sellers are encrypted. Finally, a global trading platform that respects your privacy. Visit local.bitcoin.com to get started trading Bitcoin Cash. Local.bitcoin.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 2 up next after the news here at listen.freetalklive.com.
The search and rescue effort continues. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. Hours after a partial collapse of a high-rise condo in Surfside, Florida, near Miami, nearly 100 people are still missing. Teams of people, some with dogs, are searching for survivors.
We will get the support from the federal agency FEMA. The president has pledged that support, and so shortly these orders will go forward, and we will be able to bring, in addition, FEMA federal assistance to this site.
Miami-Dade County Mayor Daniela Levine Cava, about half the building's roughly 130 units were impacted. At least 35 people were pulled out alive. Another 102 who had been missing have been accounted for. A bipartisan deal on infrastructure was reached earlier today, but Democrats are linking it with a much larger spending bill that does not require Republican support.
A bipartisan framework would spend $1.2 trillion on core infrastructure over 8 years, and President Biden says be fully paid for.
There's no gas tax increase, no fee on electric vehicles.
But the total is only a fraction of about $6 trillion in spending on other priorities proposed by the president in his American Families Plan, spending House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says is linked to the bipartisan offer.
There ain't going to be an infrastructure bill unless we have the reconciliation bill.
That reconciliation bill would give Democrats the ability to pass the broader spending measure without Republican support. On Capitol Hill, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
About 650 U.S. troops are expected to be kept in Afghanistan to provide security for American diplomats after the troop drawdown is complete. Most of the troops will begin leaving in the next 2 weeks, a Pentagon official tells Fox News. Several hundred additional forces will remain at the Kabul airport until September to assist Turkish troops. America is listening to Fox News.
Don't put off creating or setting up a will or trust because you think it's complex and expensive. With trustandwill.com, it's simple, convenient, and secure. For as little as $39, you can nominate guardians for your children, determine who gets your stuff, and plan for future medical care all online. Trust and Will is the most trusted name in online estate planning, having helped hundreds of thousands of people protect their families, assets, and legacy. Don't put this off any longer. Get 10% off plus free shipping at trustandwill.com/Fox.
Americans behind on rent due to the pandemic are getting another month of relief.
The Centers for Disease Control has extended a federal moratorium on evictions until July 31st, but officials warn this is likely the final reprieve. The current pause on evictions was due to expire at the end of the month. The White House says bans on evictions for renters and mortgage holders were always intended to be temporary. Landlords who have opposed a moratorium and challenged it in court are against any more extensions. They argue the focus should be on speeding up rental assistance. At the White House, Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
The Biden administration says it plans to evacuate thousands of Afghan interpreters and others who work with U.S. forces during the war. Senior administration officials say they would go to other countries while their applications for entry into the United States are processed. The online industry website, The Wrap, says YouTube is the #1 source for social media.
Data from the Washington, D.C.-based Pew Research Center states 81% of Americans use YouTube. That's up 8% since 2019, while Facebook remained the same at 69%. A YouTube spokesperson attributed the growth to its investment in short videos, live streaming, and an emerging commerce strategy. Watching YouTube on a television became the fastest growing viewing channel because of its participatory nature, from people learning to cook to watching concerts to watching others discussing news and culture. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
I mean, it's just so hard to believe that it's really all gone.
It was in this living room 3 weeks ago that the Talbot family discovered their DVR had suddenly and inexplicably crashed, deleting more than 5 years' worth of recorded live events and miniseries.
I keep having flashbacks to that day, to that moment when I realized everything was gone.
You know, you hear stories about people who mismanage their device settings, but you never really think it could happen to you. Honestly, it feels like some sort of a dream, like when I wake up, I'll be able to just go downstairs, turn on the TV, and all the episodes will be there again, as if nothing had ever happened.
Friends and family of the Talbots have pledged their support, organizing DVD donations and offering passwords to online streaming services while the family struggles to move on.
We know that we'll never be able to replace all the hours of programming that we had, but I think in the end we'll be just fine. As long as we have our 5 seasons of Seinfeld on DVD.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, coming at you from Fork Fest 2021 here at Rogers Campground. It's a beautiful day, beautiful place to be. Can't think of anywhere else that's better. Joined by Lee and Ashton Birdie here. Now, you were just telling us a really interesting story. You had a podcast.
Right.
And like 3 episodes into it, you pissed off Apple and they removed you from their platform.
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel originally. I have 160,000 followers on that YouTube channel. I mean, the algorithms mess with me on YouTube, but I still fairly get some good views from my very loyal subscribers who I consider family, and they're amazing. But I decided to start a daily podcast. I thought, maybe it would up my chances of getting the talk more out there and get more people to listen and understand, and maybe get less shadow banned, because I hear people have a better way with podcasts. They get less censored. So I made 3 episodes. I wasn't getting any views. Granted, I wasn't promoting it as much as my YouTube channel, but within 3 episodes, after focusing on the edgier stuff, like great old Jeffrey Epstein, 9/11, all the kind of, typical stuff just to test it out, I got basically thrown off the platform completely.
All the typical stuff that you get silenced for.
Exactly. So you can't talk about vaccinations, you can't talk about Jeffrey Epstein, you can't talk about 9/11, you can't talk about Waco, any of that stuff apparently.
Were you just using Apple's podcasts for your show?
Yeah. Again, I'm new to podcasts.
Right.
It was just sort of test it out and see how it goes. Again, I am more of a YouTube person. I'm a comedian. I do stand-up comedy. I do all kinds of stuff. So I like using my hands and making facial features, facial expressions, and being a cartoon character. But I thought, a podcast would be a great way to get more of what I wanted the people to hear out there. And sure enough, Apple censored me after 3 episodes.
Well, that's certainly a big issue. Big tech censorship is something that we've run into repeatedly here on Free Talk Live. We're currently banned from YouTube.
Right.
We have 2 strikes for, quote, medical misinformation. So we're currently
disagreed with the World Health Organization or CDC at the time that they were saying the thing, instead of the time when they said the opposite of the thing.
So we're currently not streaming to the Free Talk Live YouTube channel because one more strike and the channel gets permanently deleted. No way to undo that. And we run into similar issues on Facebook, Twitter. I'm currently banned from Facebook for another 11 days or something because it's Pride Month, and that happens to me every Pride Month because I say things that the LGBT community doesn't like stop taking pride in characteristics, you racists, you sexists, you bigots, and start taking pride in accomplishments, which is something that makes them go crazy because...
Which is funny because Pride is basically bought out by corporations now and the government. I mean, did you see the CIA videos that came out? Like, we are cis... I'm like, that lady came out and she's like, I'm an immigrant. I'm a child of immigrants and I'm a cisgender millennial with anxiety disorder. And then you have another one who's like, I'm a gay Fed. And it's like, great, but you're still a Fed. Great, fantastic.
You more female mass murderers.
It's like, what?
They're the types of people that we should be throwing bricks at, right?
But it's like great. So you're dropping nukes, but at least the person dropping the nukes is a trans woman of color. You know what I'm saying? It's like, great. You haven't fixed any of the problems. We're still run by corporations. We're still run by war. At the end of the day, as long as we're waving a rainbow flag in the Saudi Arabia, we're all good, right?
That's been my issue with a lot of it, right? And that's why we don't see many anti-war Democrats anymore because, Bush and Trump, they were the ones dropping those mean, evil bombs. No, Obama and Biden, they're dropping these happy, loving bombs. They're bombing you out of love.
The drone strikes mean nothing to these people. I mean, growing up, I was raised by 2 people. I was raised by an entire family. I'm from Berkeley, California. I was born and raised in Berkeley, California. So all my family is basically white wine liberals. And they all talk about how they protested Vietnam, they were anti-war. anymore. But then they go ahead.
Yeah, what happened to that, guys?
Yeah, no, and then they go ahead and vote for Obama for a second term after his drone strikes. And so me in high school, I think that's what really piqued my interest in politics because, I found Alex Jones through a World of Warcraft server, okay? And then during my high school career, that's when Ulbricht happened, that's when Snowden happened, that's when the Sandy Hook shooting happened, that's when Assange happened, that's when all of these crazy things happened. So here I was, this blue-haired kid, listening to Green Day every day, thinking to myself, wow, all this crazy stuff's happening in the world. Let me look into what's going on. And instead of being that kid, I got in a fight when I was in history class one day because this kid was like, after the Sandy Hook shooting, he was like, why don't we just ban all the guns? And I'm like, and sort of a light bulb went on in my head. And I think that's what really pushed me. And I think, naturally I've always been the black sheep. That's really sort of pushed my rebellion. And ever since I've sort of questioned everything in my life.
Well, it's a bizarre mentality. Hey, this person with a gun did a bad thing, so we need to get rid of all guns. That's clearly not the way it works. If you do that, then only criminals are going to be the ones
exactly.
with guns.
That was sort of the light bulb went off my head. But after that, it was sort of like a snowball effect of everything else was going on in the world. I mean, I got in trouble all the time. I started riots on my campus. I mean, I went to, I got, I didn't get in like physical fights, but I got like in shouting matches with people. I skipped school because I wanted to go protest SeaWorld.
Awesome. I hate SeaWorld. I hate zoos, and everyone else is like, but I love zoos. I'm like, dude, they're inhumane and evil. Stop supporting them.
It's wild to me that it's funny to me because I never really considered myself a liberal or conservative until I think the Trump era. Then I started considering myself more conservative, but really, looking back at it now, it was sort of just 4 years of a mistake, honestly. Because, we all thought the same thing. Like, oh, this is the guy who's going to take away the Republican Party
He's
from the
outsider.
inside. Exactly, But then you watch this guy and it's like, oh, there's another strike in Syria. We're still waiting on Julian Assange getting pardoned, you guys. It's going to happen any day now.
He's going to close Guantanamo Bay any second.
I also fell into that trap. I supported Obama during his first presidential election, but after that, because he was supposed to be the peace president. They gave him a Nobel Peace Prize. I was like, great, finally, an end to war. Let's do this. And then all he did was create more war.
Well, no, exactly. I mean, the whole reason I hate Hillary Clinton was because she was banging on the war drums.
Man, she was the entire presidential cycle, whatever it was back then.
For me, that was
all about. She made it clear she wanted war with Russia.
That was a big surprise for me when Trump came in. Is usually when we have a Republican president, we have anti-war left people.
Well, to be fair,
that's just how it
Rand
goes.
Paul does run under Republican, but I mean. Ron Paul, didn't he run under Republican technically too?
Yeah,
or is he,
he did.
I ran as a Republican. I ran as a
Oh
Republican.
yeah, actually, can we talk about that really quick? I really want to touch bases on the fact that you ran as a Republican, and didn't people get mad about that when they found out?
They did, yes. Even though all they ever had to do was just Google me, right?
Yeah, but I mean, the whole R versus D thing is it's absolutely ridiculous. It's like people want to understand what's wrong with the world. It's like, well, maybe stop voting between R and D and wondering why we get the exact same thing every year when the same R and D are run both by the same corporations, warmongers, the same thing. They're run by these same elites. So you're not really getting a different party. You're just voting for the quote-unquote lesser of two evils. Really,
I like the way that, I can't remember his name, the former governor, Jesse Ventura, I like the way he characterized it as politics just being like identical to pro wrestling,
Yeah.
In front of people, they pretend to be enemies, but in the backstage, they're all on the same team.
Well, I have found one difference between politics and pro wrestling. So in pro
we
wrestling...
know pro wrestling is fake.
Well, yes, of course. That's not the difference. No, in pro wrestling, so when they actually, go to the bar and hang out with each other, like, they're actually decent people. Whereas politicians, they're all the heel.
Yeah. I mean, when I was living in D.C., we used to go to Trump Hotel all the time, and I would just see people from CNN. I would see Democratic candidates hanging out. I'm like, that's a little strange. And I was with Cassandra Fairbanks at the time, and she's like...
Yeah, they're all on the same team, as you were saying.
Yeah, they're all on the same team. They're all working for the same warmongers and corporations. The same warmongers and corporations, by the way, who, again, speaking of pride... just use all of these political movements to drive us against each other. I mean, think about it. During Occupy Wall Street, again, that was the time that I was like in high school and I really got excited about politics. I wanted to run away to New York and sleep in a tent and not for Occupy Wall Street. I was 16. My parents said no, obviously. But I just remember during Occupy Wall Street, everyone was working together. You saw who's the guy who plays the Hulk? He was out there in the streets. I think Roseanne was out in the streets. All these different people were working together because they knew the banks were corrupt. They knew there was a similar enemy, and then we were all. It wasn't about right versus left anymore. It wasn't about Democrat versus Republican like it was during the Bush era. It was focusing on this one evil. And then 2 years later, BLM happens, and everyone's split.
Yeah.
And so they're using identity politics to really tear people apart when it comes to the main issues. They don't want us thinking about the war. They don't want us thinking about corporations. They don't want us thinking about the big banks. And then for those who do think about the corporations, either you are a libertarian, or I don't want to say libertarian, but like you're a Republican enthusiast, who claims to be libertarian, is pro-corporation all the way, or you're a full-on Marxist, communist, or socialist.
Well, thank you so much, Ashton Birdie, for joining us. Where can people find more of your content?
I have a YouTube channel. I am known as Ashton Birdie, ASHTONBIRDIE.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today. Fascinating story. I intend to look up your channel. We're Free Talk Live, and we are continuing all the way up until July the 4th. You're welcome to join us. It's Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
The Terran Federation and the Terran League have been killing each other for decades. Sheltered, wealthy, and light years from the threat, the members of the 500 have no interest in changing that. When Rear Admiral Terrence Murphy is given governorship of a backwater system, a risk-free path to wealth and power is his for the taking. But Murphy is a man of honor, duty, and responsibility. He intends to stop the killing, whatever the cost. Governor, by David Weber and Richard Fox, from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com.
If you're David, a few well-chosen words can help level the playing field with Goliath. I'm Holland Cook from survivalspeech.com. Recently, I saw a Yellow Pages ad for an appliance repair company, and the headline read, "Why wait for Sears?" If you're going to the Yellow Pages, the Dead Sea Scrolls of advertising, you're ready to buy right now. So this is an attention-grabbing message. And how about the plumber whose radio ad says, "Call by noon Thursday, and we'll be there Saturday at no extra cost"? Smart guy. Most plumbing firms give their crew the weekend off. This one gives them Sunday and Monday off. In the words of a respected advertising executive, cut to the chase, make it quick, and tell me exactly what you can do for me, especially if you're looking for work. For more tips on critical communication skills for the way things are now, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, coming at you from Fork Fest 2021 here at Rogers Campground. It's a beautiful day. You know, Mark mentioned yesterday that there was sort of an overcast feeling. Everything sort of felt muted. And I reminded, I said this before we even came out here, it was obviously going to be that way because there are some notable people not here this year, such as Ian Freeman, who, no one built Fork Fest, but if any one person could conceivably be credited with creating Fork Fest, it would be Ian Freeman, who isn't able to attend. So obviously, there's going to be a cloud over the entire festival that Ian Freeman helped build when Ian Freeman can't be here. And that's because, as we were talking about just a moment ago, off air, we were rated on March the 16th. You can find out more about that at thecrypto6.com. That's a numeral 6 or spelled out, it doesn't matter, thecrypto6.com. In stuff related to cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, essentially, banks run the U.S. government, and they use them as their enforcement branch. And that's essentially what the FBI is doing here. The banks aren't happy, so the FBI isn't happy. And they did, in fact, take Free Talk Live down off of the air for one night. We were back on the air the next night. And then we sort of hobbled along for a few months while Ian was unjustly being held. Finally, he was released, and that just created I expected it to make my life a lot easier. Oh, thank God. Ian's back. I can go back to, do my 2 nights a week, and everything will be fine. But no, as it turned out, that wasn't the case at all. We ended up having to build a second studio, which will be fully autonomous here shortly. And we were talking about Bitcoin, and you have some strong opinions, Ashton, about El Salvador.
I have strong opinions about Bitcoin in general, the banks in general.
You're speaking to the choir on that
I mean, look, I love Bitcoin. I really do. I like the concept of it taking down the Fed.
I hate Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin Cash. I love Monero.
Right. Okay. Right. Exactly. But here's the thing.
If you love butterflies, you can't hate caterpillars. And they all kind of started there.
Yeah. My problem with Bitcoin is that I have this personal theory that Bitcoin is going to replace the Fed. I have this theory that Bitcoin is basically going to be used to put us into the next market crash. Because think about it. Right now, everyone's hyped up on Bitcoin. Elon Musk is pushing Bitcoin, and I do not trust Elon Musk. I do not trust anything he does.
He's a welfare whore.
I do not trust him whatsoever. He didn't even make Tesla. He just bought off Tesla. Did you see that anonymous video, by the way? Anyway.
Oh, yeah. We did an entire night on that one.
Yeah. But I have this theory on Bitcoin that it's pretty much going to be a subsidy for the government.
Well, I mean, that's why the whole Crypto 6 thing is happening in the first place. They want Coinbase and Kraken and Gemini and Binance and all these companies that will play ball with the United States government to be the ones determining who can have crypto, how much crypto they can have, where they can withdraw that crypto to, who they can send it to. And without Coinbase and Gemini and Kraken keeping track of all of that in the same way that Bank of America and Wells Fargo do now, the U.S. government can't control it.
Right.
But if they do have Coinbase on their side, if they do have Gemini and Kraken and all of that, and Gemini...
And Robinhood.
Yeah, and they say, no, you can't withdraw to this wallet because we don't know exactly who it belongs to. This wallet hasn't registered with us or with FinCEN.
And
we're not letting you withdraw your money there.
It's exactly what they do now with, all of the banking institutions will do everything that they say. So when they say, hey, you need to take this much out of their account because they owe us this for this, banks are happy to do that. And I'm absolutely certain that all of these third-party services that will hold on to your keys for you will be just as happy to do that when the government tells them to.
I mean, most people have never really seen how evil and horrible banks really are, but I have had them reach directly into my accounts and take up to $12,000 $1,000 out at a given time to send it off to somewhere else with absolutely no legal recourse. I call them and say, hey, you can't just do that. Oh, yes, we can, because it's our money, not yours. And we might cut you a check for the remaining balance within the next 6 months. We might not. The Capital One has a 360 bank. I don't know what the details are on that, but they've been holding some of my money since August of 2019. Nearly 2 years later, they're still holding my money. Wells Fargo, when they closed my account, they held it for about 6 months.
What scares me about Bitcoin is that if it's, for example, the banks crashed. If the banks can crash, so can Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin gets crashed or hacked or whatever, only the rich are going to have the means to buy it back again. If Bitcoin is the main currency and not fiat anymore, that's going to put a lot of people who put their faith in cryptocurrency in danger. That's my biggest issue.
Well, how so?
What do you mean?
I don't
How
think
does that put them in danger? If
cryptocurrency is the main form of currency and they can't buy cryptocurrency back because only the rich have the means to buy it back.
The issue I see is that they will only be able to buy it back via Coinbase or Kraken or Gemini or one of these other exchanges that are going to force them to get KYC to death, which is know your customer, and submit all of these forms just like banks do now. If you go to your bank and say, hey, I want to withdraw, $15,000 out of my account, they're going to ask you a long list of questions about why you want that money and what you're going to do with it.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter. It's my money.
And the elites are not going to have to go through that process at all. You know that. Because
because they're the elites. They can do whatever they want.
And these are exactly the reasons that I would love for any cryptocurrency, including Bitcoin, to replace fiat currency. Because, if it's all in Coinbase and all of that, then they can do these terrible things and basically act like banks. But if you have your own keys, which is an option with cryptocurrency, then they can't do any of this.
For the time being.
You're going to have to explain that one to me. Because
you guys know how the
I
Federal
can
Reserve
literally
Fund,
hold
right?
my account information in my head.
Yes, I'm aware. But the U.S. government, there are rumors they want to ban, non-custodial wallets, which is where you own your own keys. That way, everyone has to have a custodial wallet with Coinbase or Uphold or Gemini or whoever. And if you do have your own wallet, presumably you're going to have to register it with FinCEN or some other financial institution.
I think the same thing is going to happen when they banned heroin. You just make it a really valuable commodity that just drives the price exceedingly high. Yes, it's dangerous.
That's the problem. The war on drugs has proven that to be a problem, though, don't you know? So the thing is, that's exactly what's going to happen, but that's not a good thing. That's the point.
Well, and I don't think they're actually going to ban it, because every time that it's been attempted, like China attempted to ban mining cryptocurrency, and at the moment, the majority of Bitcoin gets mined in China, in spite of the fact that they have just absolutely draconian laws against mining it at all. But it's profitable enough that it's worth the risk.
That doesn't make laws okay.
Oh, no,
I don't believe in laws, sir. So you're talking to someone who just...
Oh, no, obviously not. Like, that ain't voluntary. But no, obviously these aren't good. I'm just saying, like, in the world that we actually exist, trying to ban all of this is not going to work.
No, but imagine how much better things would be if we didn't have to waste all of this energy circumventing government restrictions and regulations.
Also, speaking of El Salvador making Bitcoin a legal currency, a legalized currency, when something becomes quote-unquote legalized, that doesn't mean it's freedom. It means the government takes a subsidy from it. For example, when they made marijuana free, what happened? It became a subsidy of the government. Speaking as someone from California who literally grows up in the Bay Area, it's the most taxed. It's anything. It's more criminalized than ever.
Oh, the price of weed definitely went up.
And legalization put a lot of independent businesses out of business.
And more people are being put away into jails for nonviolent crimes if they don't have a quote-unquote license, so they don't have jurisdiction to sell it or grow it.
That's the biggest issue with all of this. Marijuana has been legalized in more than half of the 50 states, and not one single nonviolent drug seller.
And Kamala Harris is the reason for it.
She is. Well, thank you, Ashton, so much for joining us. That's Ashton Birdie, ASHTONBIRDIE. You can find her on YouTube. More coming up from PorcFest. This is Free Talk Live.
You're having
Free Talk Live.
What I'm saying is that if you do something that could cause harm, you should be prosecuted for it.
Private Manning was prosecuted for it. Private Manning was in jail for 7 years. Private Manning was given a 35-year sentence, which is by far and away the largest sentence ever given to a person that was a whistleblower.
Not a whistleblower.
There's a video of a helicopter gunning down reporters. That's a war crime.
But ultimately, the people in the military are following the orders of thugs and liars and criminals in Washington, D.C., and as much information and as much light can be shed about their activities should be shed on their activities.
And gunning down journalists and then laughing about it is a war crime. And anybody that's defending that is an absolutely horrible, despicable person.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, broadcast from Fork Fest 5, 2021 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. And there's still time for you to get down here and join us if you're inclined. I believe the Porcupine Freedom Festival is full, but Fork Fest is not. You can certainly still come check us out June the 28th through July the 4th. I want to say about Freedom's Phoenix. It's your source for all news, economic news, government overreach, insane government spending, and more. Get today's headlines all in one place from a fresh libertarian perspective. You can find that and more at freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. Now Lee and I are joined now by Will. Now, you're a vendor here this year. Is that correct?
That is correct. We are doing self-serve drinks, things like that for people to come by where they can drop their gold backs, scan their QR code, whatever they want, take what they want. It's all honor system.
I notice you have a lot of wine down there. Are you selling wine?
We are, in fact.
Okay. I'm glad to see someone carried that tradition on this year because last year we were selling wine for the price of one gold back. And it was tremendously successful. I made a lot of gold last year doing it. Of course, I spent a lot on the wine as well, but I didn't spend any gold on the wine. So it was an interesting way of turning USD into wine, which then got turned into gold. There was no part of it that I didn't love.
I love
Upgrades all the way.
I love the Blood of Christ name as well.
Yeah,
So I'm disappointed not to see that this year.
Yeah, well, there was too much going on. I mean, I've got to be here doing the show. It really wouldn't take much effort. I still have the sign.
Well,
it wouldn't take much effort for me to put some boxes of wine there and be like, here, help yourself. But I didn't.
Well, and it would be sad for you to not be able to take crypto for it too.
I didn't get a lot of crypto from it last year, though, because it's a lot of trouble. You just want a glass of wine. Most people would stumble by at 2 o'clock in the morning and go, oh, look, there's wine.
Yeah,
and they would just drop a gold back in the cup or whatever and help themselves.
After 11, some of our clients coming through, they can barely make change. So
yeah.
I could see fumbling through a crypto wallet being a little confusing.
There wasn't a lot of crypto sales for wine, but did get a lot of gold backs from it. This year, I'm ending up with a lot of silver. I do intend to visit the gold back booth. The gold back people are here this year, it was a surprise to me. I didn't know they were coming. And suddenly I was getting a phone call for someone in Utah. It was late Monday night or Tuesday night. I said, no, I'm not answering this. I don't know anyone in Utah. Then I got a text message from one of them. Hey, we're with Goldbacks. We were told we could use your site. Well, of course you can. You're the Goldback people. Let's do it.
Right.
So that was awesome. It's good to see Goldback representation here because, the person who normally helps distribute Goldbacks can't be here.
It's great. They seem to have a lot of aspects of their business that I didn't know until actually talking to them. They have this vendor agreement program where they'll let you go through, sign this agreement, and they will buy them back from you at a set rate up to $500 per month. So if you're a brick and mortar location, you want to take Goldbacks, but you're not 100% sure on how it's going to work as far as having liquidity versus gold, you can have that in your back pocket so that you can cash those in guaranteed at the retail rate if you need that additional liquidity. So it seems like a really good deal.
You can't pay your suppliers in Goldbacks usually.
Exactly. Not yet. Hopefully that will change. But that was a very interesting thing that I just found out from these guys, and it seems like a great program.
Oh, that's
I noticed that they're set up in front of Kirby's Q now, which is the barbecue place from Allstead that's here every year, and they serve wonderful food. I'm glad to see the two of them. The Kirby's Q people now have a sign up that says, dinner is for Goldbacks instead of just dinner is $14 or whatever it was. It's good to see things priced in actual Goldbacks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And we're seeing a lot more of that this year. I mean, last year was the first time it had happened with the Blood of Christ being sold for one Goldback. Of course, they were about $3 each then. They're about $4 each now. That's a little pricey for a glass of wine, but people loved it.
Yeah, and that is definitely one of the advantages of Goldbacks. I mean, it's going to be years before cryptocurrency has any kind of the low volatility that you can actually price in any kind of crypto. But gold is a steady enough change that you can actually price with it.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't fluctuate from $40,000 an ounce to $30,000 an ounce in the course of 72 hours in the way that cryptocurrency can.
Yeah. So just off the top of my head, if I had to guess, I would guess maybe 10% of our sales have been in Goldbacks at the self-service kiosk, which is really surprising. I was really glad that those seem to be taking off here, even in Ian's absence.
Well, I mean, this was the first year for the New Hampshire Goldback to be available. And New Hampshire, people love New Hampshire. I'm not even from New Hampshire, but as soon as the New Hampshire Goldback was out, I was like, yep. Screw the others. I still want one of each, for the collection. But the main ones I want are the New Hampshire ones. And that's the ones that they brought and the ones that they're selling. And it looks like they're having phenomenal success with it. People love it. It's gold that you can carry around in your hand and actually spend at a majority of vendors at the least.
Right.
So I'm pleased to see it. I hear cryptocurrency usage is down. How is that true?
I have taken in very little cryptocurrency. I've had a few miscellaneous transactions, but it seems a lot of people are holding through the dip rather than spending it. That seems to have played out. I've taken a lot of fiat, a lot of gold backs, a little bit of cryptocurrency, but not as much as I would normally expect.
Okay. Well, I didn't consider that. Is cryptocurrency in a dip right now?
It's in a major dip. It's lost about 45% of its value over the last month or so.
So what's it
went
at
from
now?
it went from like in the 60,000s to the like 30,000s, and it's I mean it's been coming back a little bit from when I've looked at it, but I mean it's still nowhere near the peak that it was at.
I don't have the legal freedom to just look up the value of Bitcoin, so I'm just curious in general what it's at. But I didn't anticipate a dip being the reason that people wouldn't spend it here at ForkFest. I mean, it's always going up and down, and I would expect most of the people here to be aware of that. And just like, well, I can just spend it today and repurchase it tomorrow.
I mean, it is always going up and down, but I mean, like the biggest crypto is obviously Bitcoin, which you have to pay like $5 or $50 to make a transaction on. So I mean, people will use that for large transactions,
right?
Which I mean, like buying houses and buying cars is a thing that you do when the weather is nice. So people liquidate a bunch of their Bitcoin, and that brings the price of the entire currency market down while it's nice and warm. Then fall comes around and it shoots back up.
Okay, fair point.
So it looks like right now BTC is at 34,600, which is actually about a 5% bump over the last few days. But
well, I mean, it's
still
significantly
down
up from where it was. I mean, what was it a year ago? Like 8,000, 9,000, something like that.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it's still doing incredible.
To characterize it as down is just bizarrely narrow in scope, in my opinion. It's up.
Well, anyone who spent their stimmy on crypto is in a very good place right now.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I hope people did that. I remember when the first stimulus check came out, the $1,200 ones. That was my general. I'm not a financial advisor, and I was not giving financial advice, but my general suggestion was, hey, take this stimulus and use it to buy cryptocurrency. Use it to buy Bitcoin. Anyone who did that took that $1,200 and turned it into roughly $4,800 if they turned around and sold the cryptocurrency at today's value. So I mean, that's a free $3,600 for basically doing nothing. But why would you cash out? Keep the Bitcoin.
Yeah, as strange as it might sound, I'm actually encouraged by the fact that people are spending less crypto now, because that means that they are very confident that they'll be able to spend cryptocurrency not at places like Porcupine Freedom Festival or ForkFest.
Well, there are certainly a large number of places you can spend it. I know there's Purse.io, which allows people to buy from Amazon using cryptocurrency. There's also can't think.
Well, there's BitRefill and Coin Cards, which are places where you can get gift cards for a whole lot of different things. Yeah, it's getting easier and easier to spend. There are a number of cryptocurrency powered credit cards, basically, where they just sell off that amount of that crypto and turn that into dollars for your actual purchase. So I mean,
so where can people go to find your site?
RV102, RV102, just down the hill. If you ask around for the self-service kiosk, they'll likely point you in our direction.
And it's also coincidentally right beside a number of Aria de Mesa for Sheriff signs, which will help people find it. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope the gold sales pick up for you. I love seeing people use gold backs like money, because, I mean,
they are money, and good money at that.
More coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live from ForkFest 2021 here at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. It's a wonderful place to be, surrounded by other liberty-loving people. Everyone's friendly. It's a great time. You've got to get down here. We're here until July the 4th, and there's going to be a fireworks show on July the 3rd. There's all sorts of people to talk to, all sorts of things to do. Get up here and check it out. Forkfest.party is the website if you want to learn more. I'm sitting here now with Jason from Americans for Prosperity. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And your thing is healthcare.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me about your perspectives on healthcare and what exactly it is that you do in healthcare.
Yeah, so I get the distinct pleasure that I get to travel the country talking about how we can reform healthcare and get rid of this kind of the government overlay of it and what individual healthcare means and what it means to bring healthcare to you. So that way, instead of talking about this system and how this government takeover would work, we get to talk about your care, what's important to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've always been of the mind that probably the simplest and easiest way to fix healthcare would be to get government out of it and so much as allow people with no training whatsoever to open a medical practice if they want. And if, they end up killing people, sue them for malpractice or, incarcerate them if it absolutely comes to that. But there's no reason that someone with a 4-year degree in physical therapy or whatever can't diagnose pneumonia or the flu or something like that.
Yep. Yeah, there's no reason that it can't be done by the community either. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a government entity that does that. Look at car mechanics. There's no national certification for car mechanics.
Good point.
But I wouldn't go to someone that's not ASC certified. That's a local nonprofit. Now, yeah, I can respect the argument of having some overarching national idea, but if you're in the country, why can't you go state to state? Why can't someone from New Hampshire go to Massachusetts? I'm in Massachusetts. I've received care in New Hampshire. I've practiced here. I'm a paramedic. I've been in EMS for nearly 20 years. So I've cared for patients in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. Why do I have to have 3 separate state licenses to do almost the identical work in each state?
That's a really good question. Speaking of cars and, car mechanics and all that, that's been an interesting subject for me over the last several years because health insurance doesn't work any way like insurance is supposed to, right? It certainly doesn't work in the way that car insurance does. And one of the reasons that the healthcare industry is so broken is because people use their health insurance for things they shouldn't use it for, like routine doctor visits. I can't imagine the insanity of going to get my oil changed at my mechanic and be like, yep, here's my car insurance information, or to get your tires rotated or whatever. But that's how we use health insurance, for these minor, simplistic, predictable things, instead of actually having it as something that we can rely upon in case we actually need it.
Yeah, imagine not knowing how much your oil change is going to cost until like 2 months later when you randomly get a bill.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's part of health insurance, that we don't know what we're paying for. And I get the argument that people say that, well, that's an emergency. Healthcare, it's an emergency. I'm like, I worked in emergency medicine for 20 years. There's surveys that say anywhere from 5 to 8% of our healthcare spending is an emergency. That's it. We're not talking about emergencies. We're talking about 92% of the time, you have time to sit back and think, all right, where do I want to go? Do I want this dermatologist? What's the best place to get that knee surgery I'm going to need?
That's certainly been my experience. I imagine health insurance is used primarily at your primary care physician across the United States. Most people, sure, it's good to have health insurance if you are in a car accident or whatever, or if, you develop cancer, but it shouldn't be used to just go and see your primary care provider, because then your insurance company foots the bill, the doctor charges you more because he knows you're not paying for out of pocket. So what does he care? Which raises your rates and the rates of everyone else.
And it takes the power from you and your doctor. So you lose control over your own health care. Anything that puts another person in the room, it's you and your doctor. That's all that should be involved in your health care. There shouldn't be a regulator. There shouldn't be a government official. All that does is crack down on efficiency and skyrockets your prices.
I remember when the Affordable Care Act first was released, and there were all the promises of, you can keep your doctor, but that's suddenly not true.
Suddenly not true.
We knew that wasn't going to be true because it's government health care, and the government sucks at doing everything, including taking care of. Just look at the VA. Right. I can't imagine the mentality of someone who knows about the VA, who knows it exists and the shape that it's in, and is thinking to themselves, yes, we need all of our hospitals and doctors to be run like this.
Yeah, we made a promise to a lot of people to run the VA right, and without any competition, without any way of being forced to do better. Look what happened to it. And we're failing on a promise we made.
I know people in the United Kingdom like to point to their National Health Service as something to be proud of and stuff like that, but their doctors are working 100-hour weeks and the suicide rate is insanely high, as is the depression rate. People are just leaving the industry, as one would expect. When you have to ration healthcare out in the United Kingdom because you don't have enough doctors, and you can't recruit enough doctors because they can't raise prices in order to decrease the amount of people who require health care. And it's all just basic supply and demand. As you decrease the supply of doctors and you increase the demand for health care because suddenly the government's paying for it, so what do you care? It's designed to break.
Yeah, it's regulation layered on top of a regulation within a regulation to try to fix the first regulation.
Yeah.
And all that does is restrict supply. So, of course, with less supply, there's going to be longer wait lines and there's going to be more expenses.
People also like pointing to Canada as a healthcare example. Like, oh, yeah, well, Americans love coming to Canada to buy our cheap drugs. And I was like, yes, and that's true, but our issue with the price of pharmaceuticals is an issue because of intellectual property, which is a different thing altogether. Like if you could just manufacture your own EpiPen for $4 or whatever and sell that, that would be one way of fixing this, but you can't do that because of intellectual property. So the issue there is fundamentally different. The American pharmaceutical companies put a lot of money into developing these new drugs, and they told the U.S. government, hey, but we want an exclusive right to manufacture this thing for this amount of time. And then they're the only ones who can manufacture. So, of course, they can charge whatever the hell they want, and no one can do anything about it.
Absolutely. And you're looking at decades to come through. So there are competitors to EpiPens trying to make it through the FDA process right now, but it might be decades until we see that just because of the FDA. There's big reforms that can be done there.
There absolutely are. It seems like the only thing that the FDA was ever in a hurry to get through was the COVID-19 vaccines.
Right. Like it or hate it, and I have to say this, in the world that we existed in, Operation Warp Speed basically said one of the biggest things it did was say, be efficient. Don't let things sit on your desk.
What is Operation Warp Speed?
That was the process when the federal government's part in speeding up the vaccine.
Okay.
So there's part of that Operation Warp Speed was an order from the president to tell the FDA to just be efficient. If it has to do with the vaccine, you do not let it sit on your desk. It shows up, you take care of it, and you let it move to the next step. We waste years just sitting there waiting for someone to review it on that alone. And that's what causes these things to take so much time.
So how does your organization intend to address these issues, and what do you do to help the average person?
So we have a few different things that we want to do. First of all, this whole idea of a government takeover, this one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Well, it never has.
It never has. So we offer a suite of what we call it the personal option, where it focuses on your health care, reforms at the state and federal level that we can change today. And we found in the pandemic, we talk about certificate of need laws that restrict access to care. States repealed them during the pandemic. We're working to keep those laws repealed. Telehealth,
Excellent.
where you can talk to your doctor in the way that best suits you, whether it's video or phone or a mix of that and seeing your doctor in person. How do we make that permanent in a way that you and your doctor have the decision?
The strangest thing about the pandemic for me was doctors' offices telling people, don't come in if you feel sick. What the hell do you mean? That's the whole reason you exist, is for me to come in when I feel sick.
Yep.
But suddenly they were so terrified of this virus that they're like, no, don't even come in. But that's your job, is to deal with me when I'm sick.
Exactly. And even worse, the state then said, no, you cannot talk to people on the phone. And then suddenly, okay, we're shutting down your office and you have 4 days to be able to talk to patients on the phone. And these laws you still have to follow.
So doctors prior to this weren't allowed to interact with their patients, in a medical way over phone?
It varies from state to state, but most states out there, they wouldn't be able to bill for it at the very least. Wow. Some states, you cannot transmit certain data over email or over the phone to your doctor. It's just illegal. They can't accept it. Most of it is the doctor can't bill for the time. Now, I have a wonderful doctor, and I was able to call him, ask for some advice one time. It took about 15 minutes. He's not allowed to bill for that. If he did that with every patient, he would be out of business in a month, and nobody would have a doctor. We need to open that up so doctors and patients can have the decision. You should be able to decide how you interact with your doctor. If you're immunocompromised, maybe you don't want to go into the doctor's office full of sick people. Maybe just having a conversation with your doctor means a video chat that's secure.
So where can people go to learn more?
Go to apersonaloption.com. That's part of Americans for Prosperity.
Apersonaloption.com?
Apersonaloption.com.
Thank you so much for sitting with me.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I'm shocked to find out that doctors couldn't, bill for conversations with their patients. It's an insane world we live in, but there's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 3 up next after the news here at listen.freetalklive.com.
Searching for survivors. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. Nearly 100 people are still missing after the partial collapse of a high-rise condo in Surfside, Florida, outside Miami. It happened at about 1:30 a.m. local time.
Every possible resource that not just Miami-Dade County, local, state, and federal are being expanded to assist with this situation.
Miami-Dade Assistant Fire Chief of Operations Ray Jadala, at least one person was killed. Rescuers pulled 35 people from the rubble. More than 100 others have been accounted for. The mayor of Miami-Dade County says structural engineers are working to figure out the cause of the collapse. The U.S. will keep a small number of troops in Afghanistan after the drawdown for security for diplomats.
About 650 U.S. troops will remain in Afghanistan for months after the main military withdrawal is complete. The Associated Press reports the remaining U.S. troops will provide security for diplomats and potentially assist Turkish troops until a more formal Turkey-led security operation is in place. President Biden set a September 11th date for withdrawal. Officials have stressed security at Kabul's international airport is critical to keep U.S. diplomats in Afghanistan. U.S. troops have been a constant presence in Afghanistan since the war on terror was launched in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks in 2001. On Capitol Hill, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
Vice President Kamala Harris will visit the El Paso Central Processing Center, a Customs and Border Patrol facility, when she travels to Texas-Mexico border tomorrow. Harris's spokeswoman says the vice president will meet with migrants at the facility. President Biden with a stop this evening in Raleigh, North Carolina, where he urged people who are not vaccinated against COVID-19 to get the shot.
Let's celebrate the 4th of July with the independence from the virus. We can get this done.
But the president will likely not meet his goal of getting 70% of adults vaccinated by then. America's listening to Fox News.
Don't put off creating or setting up a will or trust because you think it's complex and expensive. With trustandwill.com, it's simple, convenient, and secure. For as little as $39, you can nominate guardians for your children, determine who gets your stuff, and plan for future medical care all online. Trust and Will is the most trusted name in online estate planning, having helped hundreds of thousands of people protect their families, assets, and legacy. Don't put this off any longer. Get 10% off plus free shipping at trustandwill.com/Fox.
Former President Trump's personal lawyer and former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani has had his law license suspended in New York State.
An appeals court cites false statements in attempts to overturn the 2020 election for the action. Giuliani, on behalf of former President Trump, traveled the country after Joe Biden was declared the winner, speaking in news conferences and at state legislative hearings. The committee recommending the suspension said Giuliani's actions sought to cause a loss of confidence in our elections. The order suspends Giuliani until disciplinary matters are heard and the court rules further. Giuliani has 20 days to request a hearing. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
The Teamsters Union is holding its once every 5 years convention, and this time the union is setting its sights on Amazon.
A resolution circulated at the Teamsters convention says Amazon has changed the nature of work in the country, and that change has touched core Teamsters industries and workers. It says if approved, they will create a division within the Teamsters that will focus on unionizing Amazon workers, calling the company an existential threat to their standards. It isn't clear how much support they will get or where. Workers at the Bessemer, Alabama warehouse overwhelmingly rejected efforts to join the Retail Workers Union earlier this year. The outcome of that is being challenged by that union over claims that Amazon intimidated workers. Jeff Bezos, who's stepping down as CEO to be chair of Amazon's board, recently said the company does need to do better by their employees.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
This is the Onion Week in Review. According to sources, all 6.5 million residents of Indiana spontaneously formed thousands of perfectly uniform rows throughout the state Monday morning and established a collective consciousness. Saying, "We are Indiana," the new hive mind talked and moved in unison, with citizens working together to build a massive geometric superstructure in downtown Indianapolis where they would gather to sleep, breed, and feed.
All corns for Indiana. All corns for Indiana.
The collective state went on to report that soon Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, Kentucky, and Canada would all become Indiana. Persons close to Phoenix area friends Jake Welter and Mike Seflin confirmed Friday that the two men are absolutely incapable of greeting each other like normal human beings.
Beep, 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 beep.
Sources say the two full-grown men simply cannot walk into a room and shake each other's hands, relying instead on elaborate dances, forced pop culture references, and extended fake fighting. Neither Welter nor Seflin was available for comment as they were busy pretending to rip each other's faces off.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live here from Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest continues. We're on day 3 or 4. I don't know. It all starts to kind of blur together after a while. Hence, why we're calling this Fork Fest instead of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, because that's this thing that just sort of happens down there and it's gated off and you have to have a wristband and all of that. Fork Fest doesn't require any of that. All you have to do is be here. With you right now is Angie, Aria, and Bonnie. Not the Bonnie that you're probably thinking of. But yesterday, you hosted a fundraiser party.
We did.
For the Crypto 6. Now, for those who aren't aware, the Crypto 6 are 6 individuals, myself included, who were raided and arrested by the FBI on March the 16th for white-collar crimes, or alleged white-collar crimes. The level of force that was shown is absolutely disproportional to the charges that we're being charged with, which are, as I pointed out, strictly white-collar crimes. And for that, they kicked in our doors. They threatened to shoot me, holding me at gunpoint. They drove a freaking drone in through the window at Free Talk Live. Just absolutely insane degree of force. I mean, these people were making a statement. And yesterday, you made a statement. And it was an awesome party over by the playground. Bitcoin Gandhi was there. I was there. Mark was there. A lot of people were there. So tell me about this. What inspired you to do this?
So my husband and I decided that we wanted to throw a party at the Porcupine Freedom Festival when we decided that we were coming for this year. This is my 5th time. And when I'll never forget in March, I usually listen to the show and I listen through the podcast. And one morning I went and I looked and it wasn't there. And I said, oh, it's never happened as long as I've been listening. In the decade I've been listening, the show's never not been there. There must be some technical difficulties. So a couple
there were
days
technical
later,
difficulties.
Oh, were they ever? So when I heard about what happened, I said, what a serendipitous opportunity to throw a party, but also make it more meaningful and for something that we care about and to raise money for a good cause. So
thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. Selfishly, we got to have a party, but also we got to help, some folks that have that deserve it.
And we all enjoyed the party. It was great. The DJ was amazing. And
Thank
you
you.
made some special cocktails. Can you tell us the name of the cocktail?
Sure. We made the AstraZeneca, the Moderna, the Johnson & Johnson, and the Pfizer. So you could pick your poison and decide which one was for you. The Johnson & Johnson was just one shot, but you did need to have two of the Moderna or the Pfizer in order to be fully active at the party.
Interesting. I ended up choosing red wine.
Yes,
so
yeah.
I skipped out on the vaccines entirely.
Well, I had my vaccine and I had the booster, so I was straight.
Yeah.
So it was an awesome party, and you raised a fair bit of funds for the Crypto 6.
I was really pleasantly surprised. We had donations of Federal Reserve notes of cash. We had gold backs. We had some silver donated, and some folks donated in cryptocurrency as well. So I couldn't be more thrilled with what we were able to provide.
I think it was great. I walked away for a moment to come down to kind of yell at people to say, hey, there's a dance party, free drinks and such. And I came back up there and there was like a drove of people. And I was like, hey, this is great. You know, there were a bunch of people hanging out, dancing, having a good time. And then there was some people playing the drums, like the bongos up front too, which was really cool.
Yeah.
No, it was awesome. Cool. I had to leave sort of at its peak because I had left the Free Talk Live episode from yesterday uploading to the studio to make sure it was all good, and I had to come back and check on it, and of course it wasn't. So I had to stay here for 45 minutes and fix that. By the time I got back there, everything was sort of winding down. I was like, I missed like the height of the party. But I mean, part of that is because like Chris Wade of Freedom Decrypted came over and got me at like 1:40. He was like, hey, the party's at 2, let's go. I'm like, is it 2 o'clock? He goes, yeah. So, of course, we got there 20 minutes early. Like, Chris, dude, this is not, you don't show up for parties 20 minutes early, man.
No.
He was excited.
And liberty-minded folks are not always necessarily known for being on time for
Someone
things.
said we run on anarchist time.
Yes, correct.
Said I get it.
Yeah. Free Talk Live certainly does. Mark quoted someone the other day, oh, well, we're gonna be out here like 10 to 5 every day. I'm like, Mark, I'm at the studio. I'm here at the off-site studio maybe 3 total hours out a day. You just quoted a 7-hour window for people to catch me, really? At 10 a.m., Mark? Sure, right now I'm waking up that early, but tonight's Thursday, which hopefully they're going to actually have a fire down here.
Well, there was a fire last night down here, and we walked down. I guess it was about 12:45.
And they had one down here in the pit.
Yeah, it was small, and so I had Brian, Michael, and Colin go over, and I was like, "Hey, I know where the wood is." And I've been here before, so we went over, and I loaded them all up with wood, and they took it over, and everybody was huddled around. It was so cold, and they put it was on top of the rings, on top of the fire bricks, and it was like spilling out. And they were like, yeah, it's a fire. And I was like, sweet, now we have heat.
Yeah.
So it wasn't an official Pork Fest fire. It was just, hey, guys, we know where the wood is.
No, it was a Pork Fest fire, but it was such a tiny little fire. It almost looked like a little tiny fire ring that they have on the campsites. Okay. And that's just not how we do it here at the Pork Fest.
No, far too many people down there. For,
It's been weird not seeing the great big blazing fire that,
right.
That's what sticks in my mind.
They put the ring up because they're trying to keep it contained and they don't want it to get so big. But if you know anything about the Freedom Festival, we don't really follow the rules. So the ring is there and we just build it around it.
Wasn't the ring there last year?
They put the ring up there after someone did a flip over the fire.
Oh.
That was years ago.
They put the ring up the year after that.
Okay. Well, last year they still had enormous fires.
Mm-hmm. But there was a guy that would build the fire. He would prop the wood up around the ring, and then he would make the fire like just around the whole thing, and it would be a huge pyramid. But I don't think he's here this year.
The ring was like a guide. It was
yeah,
like
that was it.
I
can just
ring
stack this
instead
up
of
against
inside the ring.
I remember that. I think that was my first year at Fork Fest. Was the guy trying to, on LSD, allegedly trying to do a front flip over the fire. I didn't realize it was the campfire in the bowl. I thought it was just a random
No,
campfire.
it was the one down there, and there were a ton of people there, and so the ambulance came, and it was a lot. He went running through the field because he was on fire, and
As
they
one
had to
might
tackle him,
expect.
and it was a big fiasco.
Yeah, it sounds like it was. Definitely don't try to do front flips over fires.
Not at all.
Not a good idea. If you want to do a front flip, just do it at a party, right?
Yeah.
Where people are expecting that sort of thing, and don't introduce an element of fire into it.
Or into water. Water
Yes.
would be another option for
Yeah, that would be
a
good.
flip.
There's the pool right
Yes.
there. And
There
it feels
is.
great. I've been in it quite a few times. The water's a little chilly, but on a day like today, when you jump in, it feels great.
I'm sure it does. And the party yesterday, Bitcoin Gandhi was also there.
Yes, he was.
And it was just heartwarming to see the level of support that you had pulled together in support of the Crypto 6, because by far that's the most important thing, at least to me. And I don't know how all of the other 5 feel about it, but just knowing that we're not alone is more helpful than any amount of money or anything like that. It's just knowing that people support us, because I mean the attorneys, realistically, they're handled. All of that's taken care of, but knowing that we have people who support us as we go against the state is tremendously helpful. I mean,
Sure.
especially for people like Rich Paul, who are still in jail. It helps. It gives us strength to know that people are standing behind us, and it makes us less likely to buckle. Like, the loneliest and weakest I felt was when I was in jail, right? Thinking that, I'm alone in this and I've got to deal with it. And then the next night, I was sitting at home by myself, and it was just like, God, this sucks, man. I'm just completely alone here, because I wasn't able to have access to phones or internet or anything at that point. And someone got the word out that I wanted company, and the next thing I know, like 15 libertarians from Keene showed up at my house, and there was an unexpected party. I was like, yeah, I'm ready to fight this fight now.
You're like,
Thank
these
you.
are my friends.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's very isolating when you go up against the state, and just a little simple thing like a party just boosted spirits and made everyone feel great, and it raised awareness. A lot of people had no idea it had even happened.
A lot of people, and I think the shirts as well have been huge. I've seen a lot of folks, asking about. They're like, "Oh, what is the Crypto 6?" And then it gives us an opportunity to explain what happened, and how they can show support as well.
Awesome. I really appreciate it. There are Crypto 6, Free the Crypto 6 t-shirts being sold right over here from Freedom Decrypted. I imagine you can find them elsewhere as well. I think Marla's selling some.
Yep.
It's pleasant to see people walking around in Free the Crypto 6 shirts, being one of the Crypto 6. I'm like, yeah, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, but I'm surprised at how many people still have no idea what happened or what the Crypto 6 are.
It is surprising, right? But I mean, most of the press has just been here on Free Talk Live and in libertarian circles. So people who are at the edge of those circles in like Wyoming or something like that just didn't hear about it.
No.
So,
we need to keep spreading the word.
Well, we're spreading the word Saturday for sure, where I'm doing a speech here at the Pavilion.
Excellent.
At
Awesome.
11 a.m. about the Crypto 6 and the long-term implications of the case. So if you're coming up, come check that out, or throw a party, or check out one of the mini parties here at Fork Fest. More coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover brings her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
On March 16th this year, government task forces violently raided the New Hampshire Bitcoin Embassy, the Mighty Moose Mart, the homes of Aria DiMezzo, Andy and Renee Spinella, Colleen Fordham, a grandmother, and perhaps most relevant, the studios of Free Talk Live. The Crypto Six were arrested. 4 were released on bail conditions, but Ian Freeman was held hostage for 69 days. Rich Paul, also known as Nobody, remains captive. We've consulted attorneys who say no crime even appears to have been committed. But that didn't stop the Joint Thug Task Force from ripping out wires from our broadcast stacks, taking Free Talk Live off the air, resulting in a violation of our and your First Amendment rights. You can visit thecrypto6.com to help, but as importantly, contact other media and tell them about this outrage. This case is likely to set precedent for cryptocurrency use well into your future. Help our fight for liberty and financial freedom at thecrypto6.com.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live from the Porcupine Freedom Festival, or as I like to think of it, Fork Fest, because Fork Fest can now happen concurrently with the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and indeed it is, and we're here until July the 4th doing exactly that. But before we get too far into it, I want to say thank you to Gunnerman 2002, who is tonight's amplifier. This means that he contributes to the AMP program. We only ask $5 per month to join, and it comes with a number of cool little features like an AMP-only Facebook group, an AMP-only call-in line, and some other cool stuff like that. But really, the reason you should join it is because you want to help Free Talk Live reach a larger audience, because that's what the AMP program does. It's money that is used strictly to advertise, market, and promote Free Talk Live. So if you value what we do, like going out at festivals like this and meeting interesting people and talking to them about what they're up to, you might consider joining the program. That's amp.freetalklive.com. Speaking of interesting people, I'm here now with one of the original founders of Call to Freedom, I believe, which was the show that had me started on radio in the first place before I ended up on Free Talk Live, and that's Goshi.
Yeah, you got it right, yeah. Goshi. Yeah, Goshi
and
King.
You are, I've never met you before, but you're Joe.
Yep.
And the two of you have recently started a podcast. Tell me about it, because it's engineering, like angry, but engineering.
Exactly. So, it's a play on words. So A stands for anarchy.
Okay.
And then the rest is engineering, because that's who we are. Both of us are mechanical engineers.
Okay, I see.
I work as a mechanical engineer, and Joe works as a...
my job title is an energy engineer.
Energy engineer?
Yeah, so I focus on like a building's energy use.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're in the consulting industry, so we thought that it'd be a good idea, because we thought that there was lack of like science and technology, in terms of engineering in the libertarian world. So we thought it was a good idea for both of us to be part of that. So our subtitle is Blowing Hot Air.
Nice. I love it.
and another subtitle is your source for NCAP, science and technology type of podcast.
Excellent. So I assume the two of you are dealing with a lot of mass questions and stuff like that. Is that correct? I mean, that's been a hot topic throughout the last year. You started your podcast presumably within the last year.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I think it's
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Oh,
but we're
wow.
not like random. Well, we don't have a lot of podcasts, so we're sort of like hobbyists, like literally hobbyists. So we find a subject and we find the time, and then we go after it. And we don't just have a podcast just for the heck of it. We want to talk about some serious issues. In fact, tonight we're talking at 9:00 when this is going to be this show is going to be continuing. We have a talk on powering private cities.
And is that here at the Porcupine Freedom Festival? Oh, okay.
Yeah, fire in what station is where we're going to be talking.
We're at
right at the end of the hill by the pavilion. What's it called? Fire and what? Fire in something.
Couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
And you're speaking about how to power free
private cities or private islands or seasteading and that sort of stuff. And we're also going to talk about the brewing energy crisis, which is something that we have not talked about.
Sounds fascinating.
Yeah, it's something that, under the current affairs, we feel like there's so much push from the left and even some from the right going all electric. And it's going to change, what's happening to our grid. And we think that eventually we're going to run into crisis. We had them.
You mean with the electric cars consuming more and more power?
Not just that, but all the buildings, anything that's constructed new. Most of these buildings we notice in our industry are going all electric.
What do you mean all electric?
Joe, you want to elaborate?
Yeah. So there's a big, I guess, to have all electric power for your mainly your heating systems. That is the big change from natural gas or oil into electric powered sources.
Oh, electric heating?
Yeah.
Yes.
So instead of having
here in the Northeast, that would be extremely expensive, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
And modern buildings are transitioning to just using electrical heat versus classical natural heat or
natural gas or sometimes oftentimes in Northeast here in New England, residential, some even commercial, you have a lot of stuff that's made to run in propane or natural gas, and in some instances K2 or number 2 oil that's famous. It's
that's
very
kerosene,
similar to
right?
diesel. K is kerosene and then number 2 oil, which is almost diesel.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interchangeable, but they sell it as a number 2 oil, and a lot of furnaces, boilers and whatever type of heating system they have is typically run with that. But there's a lot of construction going on in Northeast, and for example, Massachusetts is one of the biggest ones, and they have stretch codes and things like that are mandating that the buildings are all electric, pretty much.
And the two of you suggest that this is going to create a massive energy crisis, presumably because we don't have the power grids to support that level of electrical draw?
That's exactly what we're going to talk about because it is our fear that, just like the late 60s and 70s when there was an energy crisis, the infrastructure was changing to electric, or there was a lot of more electric use. But the infrastructure itself, plants, were not keeping up as quickly as they should have.
Okay.
And we have a fear that the same thing is happening, especially considering that people are anti-nuclear, other fossil fuel type of plants. So everybody
wants. What are your
wants.
thoughts on nuclear plants? Because I don't have an issue with them. I know they're a hot topic issue for whatever reason, but I figured the two of you are the best people to ask.
Yeah, and we're gonna actually talk about that in depth today, because now that the nuclear is so much safer, there's no more Chernobyl type of nuclear plants.
Yeah, the last one I think was Fukushima in.
Yeah,
Japan?
because of tsunami, but part of the reason was that it was a very old plant too.
Okay.
Right, so whatever happened there has happened.
Isn't there some long-term fallout there that hasn't been dealt with that's just seeping into the ocean continually that's eventually going to create a massive problem?
I've heard about that. I can't really speak to it.
I know they had, I don't know all of it, but some radioactive water, which they thought, I believe they are doing it. They're slowly pumping it back into the ocean. And I guess the idea is that it's such a relatively small amount of water into a vast ocean that'll be diluted and not harmful.
I don't really know anything about it. I just used to watch YouTube videos a lot, and they're not really reliable sources of information more often than they are reliable sources of information. But so anyone who is interested in this topic will have already missed it by the time that this show is broadcast because of how this is all working out. You're actually going to be speaking down there on this subject while this is airing on national radio.
Yeah, Fire and Steel. I just remember now. It's called Fire and Steel. It's at the bottom of the hill, closest to Pavilion.
And does your show have a website or anything like that people can visit?
Yes, it's called engineering.tech.
And that's basically engineering, but with an A, and the A stands for anarchy. So engineering.tech, but spelled with an A at the beginning.
That's absolutely right.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you? What sort of topics do you discuss on this show? Things like this and
much more. I mean, anything science. Joe, go ahead and tell us what we did so far.
We've talked about like geothermal heating for your homes and all of that. We've talked about...
Has the technology gotten to that point yet? Because it was like 2005 when I last looked into geothermal energy, and it was like, hey, this is very promising technology.
Yeah. For heat buildings, you can use it as a heating cooling sink, but then the power is building. Geothermal power is building.
Awesome. Head on over to engineering. That's engineering spelled with an A at the beginning. .tech to learn more. Thank you so much for joining us today. There's more coming up from PorcFest. This is Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 28th through July 4th for ForkFest 2021 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. ForkFest happens the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and ForkFest is decentralized, which means no one is in charge. That also means there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 28th through July 4th. Where better to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire? You can relax and enjoy the camaraderie of like-minded people, or you can create whatever experience or event you'd like others to have. If you're planning an event for ForkFest, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with fellow ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the ForkFest forum. Links to those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. Mark your calendar for June 28th through July 4th, 2021. We'll see you at forkfest.party. Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
A congressman recently revealed that legislation totaling 2,900 pages and involving more than $1 trillion was available to members of Congress for less than 48 hours to study and consider. That's over 60 pages of legislation per hour. Do You think anyone read the entire bill? I'm Jim Babka with DownsizeDC.org. Consider a proposal buried in a 3,200-page, $388 billion bill, which would have empowered committee chairmen or their agents to examine Americans' tax returns. When this horrible provision came to light, no one claimed to know how it got into the bill. One congressman questioned said, "I didn't write it, I didn't approve it, I wasn't even consulted." If your attorney represented you this way, he might be disbarred. But this is how Congress represents you every day. That's why DownsizeDC.org has created the Read the Bills Act. You can force Congress to read their bills before they pass them at DownsizeDC.org.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio you control. Ordinarily, of course, we are here at the Freedom Festival. That's what I'm going to call it from now on. It's just the Freedom Festival. It's not Fork Fest or the Porcupine Freedom Festival. It's just the Freedom Festival.
It is a Freedom Festival.
It is.
It is a huge Freedom Festival.
It is. They were at 85% capacity here as of yesterday. Today it's probably got to be close to 95%.
I believe that. I've never seen this many people here this early.
It is
Yeah,
packed,
this
man.
by Wednesday we had the Friday crowd. The typical Friday crowd was here by Wednesday, and it was kind of surreal.
The voice you hear, of course, is Matt and Jay. Jay, thank you so much for being on here again. Matt, I don't get to see you as much as I used to, and it sucks.
I know.
You've got a family now, being all responsible and a fine, upstanding person. And yes,
I do miss
room for the crazy trans chick.
I miss doing radio with you. I'm going to be able to get down a little more. Actually, this summer, I'm going to drag Luke into the studio a few times. Luke Rudowski.
Awesome.
And we'll
be
come
great.
down and do it.
Is he here?
He's here today. Yep.
Oh, I've got to get him on.
He got into New Hampshire a few days ago, and he rolled in here, I think, on Monday. And
Luke knows a thing or two about being in front of a camera and a microphone.
Yes, he does.
Well, next time you see him, send him this way because I want to talk with him.
Yeah, I will get him to come on the show here.
Awesome. So what have you been up to?
I have been up to a lot of things, but if we can just put one thing out real quick. Remember earlier I told you about the libertarian activist who just got shot in Denver, Arvada, actually. And so as you guys know, I was in Colorado for a few years, and I got to know the We Are Change Colorado crew, and they did a lot of activism. They had weekly meetups at different places, a lot of community outreach. So Johnny Hurley, I sent you a link, Aria, and Johnny Hurley, activist, chef, musician, community pillar, killed after saving lives by the police. This is an article from We Are Change. We're going, the things open up, peakd.com.
So the quickest summary of this is that there was an armed robbery going on.
Oh, well, they called a mass shooting going on.
And Hurley intervened. Hurley, who's a Carries, from what I understand, Johnny Hurley shot the mass shooter and then basically saving lives.
Saving lives. All the report said that they saved lives. And I'm just talking to some people in Denver that know this guy.
Right.
And the guy Kenny Paterno, I don't know if you guys know him. Kenny's Conscious Kitchen. He does a lot of festy stuff out west coast and in Mexico. And he's the one to reach out to me about it, and kind of fed me the information, and he's in touch with those guys. But what the report was is that he saved multiple lives. Multiple eyewitnesses said he saved lives. They're calling him a hero. The mayor of Denver is calling him a hero. The chief of police is calling him a hero. But they're saying the cops shot him.
Oh my God! I didn't know that part of the equation.
This is just what they're saying, and it's like speculation.
So
it's not confirmed.
Is he in critical condition
He's
or
dead.
even worse?
Yep.
Cops can identify guns, but they can't identify threats.
So one thing I was thinking,
just a cop arriving at a mass shooting doesn't license them to just whip out their gun and start shooting every person who has an open carried gun. You look for the one who's actively murdering people.
Assess the situation and then behave.
Yes. You don't just open fire before assessing the situation.
Unbelievable.
But as someone like myself, I carry. So and I train with some other guys occasionally, and I think something that maybe we should do sometime we get together and train is, let's say there is somebody just popping off people somewhere, and one of us is around, and we go deal with the problem. We need to be prepared. Actually, even Chris Cantwell, like, he's got a video. He set it down good. He did, I think, a good job when he drew a gun on someone who was about to assault him. And when the cops showed up, he's like, I'm just protecting myself. He kind of worded it pretty good. And the Keene cops, I think, are actually probably pretty chill compared to most cops. There was a video about
the Keene
how
cops certainly encounter a lot of guns. I mean,
Yep.
there's people from Mass who come up to New Hampshire who call the cops on people
Right.
who are open carrying,
Yep.
and the
Right.
cops get there and they're like, hey, yeah,
Yep.
what kind of gun is it? Can I see it?
Yeah.
So maybe, Matt, think about this. We should probably come up with like a little training plan on how to, after one of us maybe take out someone who's a criminal that's doing bad stuff, we protect some people. What do we do in preparation so when the cops arrive? I don't think I want to be standing there holding my pistol on someone maybe on the ground and the cops show up because they might think I'm the bad guy, even though maybe I just, took the bad guy down, but he's like still got his gun and can still move. You really can't back off that situation, but we got to think about this a little bit.
It's amazing to me to think, I mean, not having been there, I don't know the situation entirely, but police have a pretty slow response time. I can't imagine that Hurley still had his weapon drawn when the cops arrived 28 minutes later.
People need to look into it and see what's going on. That's, I don't have any more information on it. But
Did you know him?
I know him very well, actually.
You did?
Yes. I in Colorado, I did a lot of activism with him. He's like the Ian Freeman of Denver.
Oh, don't tell me that.
He's just, very good. Like, Ian's just like a beautiful guy that everyone likes and everyone gets along with him. Like, this guy
consistent,
smiles, hugs. Nobody ever had a bad word to say about this guy. He was just great.
I mean, it sounds like he was a hero.
He's an actual hero.
Absolutely a hero.
He literally saved people's lives.
Yeah, literally saved people's lives. But he just, he's loved by that Liberty community. Like, people love, a lot of the people here, like Ian's loved very much by many of us. He's been probably some of the greatest influence to, most people here, I think, and I believe, especially to me. And
well, he certainly influenced me more than probably anyone else I've ever known.
Right, but this guy's got the same passion, the same heart, the same charisma. Like Ian's the kind of guy you want your little sister to date. Because seriously, I mean, when I say little sister,
with that.
I'm talking. I got little sisters, and they're in their 20s and their 30s, and Ian's like the kind of guy you want,
level-headed,
right?
clear,
He's just a great guy.
Stable.
This guy Johnny Hurley, is a really good dude. He's the kind of dude that you want your sister to get hooked up with. I mean, that's just the way I look at him.
Tragic, and he saved lives, and for that, the police allegedly murdered him.
Allegedly, yep. So
I assume the police are going to investigate themselves and, as usual, clear themselves of any wrongdoing, the way that police always do.
Yeah, and as of an hour ago, because I just checked the messages, the guy said we've heard nothing more from, and there's an investigation. There's been there's been a little press release by the city officials actually calling him a hero, so at least they're giving him credit for being a hero.
So what is the time frame of all of this? When did this happen?
72 hours ago, I'm thinking.
Oh, so this is okay. So this very, very recent.
Yes.
Well, I'm sorry about your loss.
Yes, well, thank you.
I'm sorry about Colorado's loss. It's always devastating to lose your most passionate and dedicated activists.
Colorado is really getting bad with gun laws, too. They've a lot of cities and counties that
Colorado, really?
Yes.
Believe it or not, they've gone awful.
Is it because of all of the people moving from California to Colorado?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Californians are really demolishing everywhere but California now. They're spreading.
Wasn't there a movement for Colorado to split into two states to rectify
there's a movement for
the
California to split into two. The state of Jefferson has been a thing for a long time. They've been trying to break off from Southern California.
I severely underestimated how long California is until I realized that, my drive from Mississippi to New Hampshire, I could take that entire drive in California and just barely get from one end of the state to the other.
Yeah, it's big. It's a whole coastline.
Yeah, that's insane. And,
Yes,
these people destroyed their state. Now they're moving to Colorado and destroying it because evidently destroying one state just isn't enough. They're a virus.
They are a virus. And Montana's dealing with it. And anywhere that looks pretty on a postcard, the Californians are flocking to. And they are absolutely demolishing.
Well, they can have Vermont,
cultures.
but they can't have New Hampshire.
In Colorado, for example, in most of rural Colorado, you'll see these signs that says, welcome to Colorado, please go home.
The thing I like about, say what you will about Vermont, but most of Vermont's problems lie in Burlington. But the people of Vermont, the average people of Vermont, are very much like that, and they don't have signs. They will tell you, "Hey, welcome to Vermont. What are you here for? How long are you going to stay? When can you go?"
Well, we got to keep the mass holes in mass, right?
Hopefully, yeah, we build a wall.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Jay. I wish you had better news, man. That's heartbreaking to hear.
Well,
where can people go to find out more about Joe Hurley? You mentioned...
We are changecolorado.org.
Thank you so much. More coming up from Fork Fest. It's Free Talk Live.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it. And once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world. So I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lovers brings her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com. Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Yeah!
It is Free Talk Live, coming at you from Rogers Campground, Fork Fest 2021 in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. There's still time for you to come and check it out. We are here until July the 4th, staying for the full duration. I'm getting conflicting reports about how many people are going to stay. According to Angie, there's a significant number, but I'm basing it off of the orange stickers I see on people's vehicles that are a firm indicator of whether or not they're staying. And I just don't see that many going beyond June the 28th, which is the end of the Porcupine Freedom Festival. But who knows? I mean, last year there were people who came up just for Fork Fest.
Yep.
So we have no idea what's going to happen because we don't sell tickets because there's no one to sell tickets. If you bought a ticket for Fork Fest, you got ripped
It's counterfeit.
off. Yeah.
It's not real.
Because there's no ticket needed.
If the event is real, the ticket wouldn't be.
I know of at least 3 families who will be arriving here either Sunday or Monday for Fork Fest because they simply couldn't even. They actually had Pork Fest tickets, but they didn't have a site, so they sold their tickets. And then other people couldn't get tickets, so I know there's at least a dozen bodies coming here that I'm aware of just for Fork Fest.
That's beautiful. I'm happy to hear it. I've been kind of discouraged seeing the stickers going, oh man, nobody's going to, if Fork Fest is going to be me sitting here talking to a microphone.
I don't think a ton of people here know about Fork Fest. I know that I have mentioned to people and it's the first they've heard of it, so we may pull a handful of people out of that group of people too. I'm certainly staying. I'll be here till July 4th.
That's another strong case for having it after the Porcupine Freedom Festival because we can use the Porcupine Freedom Festival to make people aware of the after party for the cool kids.
The cool kids.
I mean, that's really what it is. The Porcupine Freedom Festival is sort of a constrained, family-friendly version of Fork Fest. That's not to say Fork Fest is not family-friendly, but Fork Fest is a party. Let's just be honest.
Back in the old days, the reason we forked was one of the reasons we forked is because Pork Fest kind of became a little family friendly and it was a riot,
man.
A little more centralized, too centralized for some of us.
But they've scaled it down a lot to the extent that last night I was debating whether or not it's even necessary to have 2 festivals. Maybe we can just merge them together.
Yeah, Pork Fest has rerouted a little bit and it feels pretty good. And there's a ton of people here. I think we already mentioned that once, but I'm just gobsmacked by how many people showed up this year. This is amazing.
Of those people here is Jay Noon. Jay, I had your breakfast sausage yesterday.
Thank you.
Or your breakfast croissants is actually absolutely amazing. Now, everything that you sell there, maybe minus the croissants, is stuff that you raised and grew and killed and processed yourself, right? Or
some of it is that. But basically, all the pork are pigs that I raise on my property. Last year, during my daughter was born in February, and I'm sitting there in a hospital watching TV, and I'm like, these guys are looking to they're going to starve us out, and I'm just paying attention to what's going on, and they're like, Tyson's euthanizing hogs, and thousands of them, and
I remember that
chickens,
is because
they're still doing it.
The non-competition agreement in their contracts.
Right.
It means that if Tyson doesn't want their pigs, they can't just sell them to someone who does want them. They have to euthanize them.
And that's one of the things I tried doing early. Myself and Neil Smith of Bardo Farm, we teamed up. The Smith families here, they moved here a dozen years ago, and they've been raising pigs ever since, and they're real good at it. And we just I last spring bought 250 piglets.
Wow.
Because
That's a lot of
I
pigs.
started putting a call out. I go, hey, we need pigs. And they're like, my buddy's like, I got to go get a semi-load. How many can you take? And he puts 800 little piglets in a semi-load. He went to Indiana. I think he actually got them for free. But anyways, I paid him like $65 a pig. And I sold them for $150 a pig cash and $100 a pig if you paid in bullion, Bitcoin, or bullets. And people paid me in bullion, Bitcoin, and bullets and cash for pigs. And I ended up, long story short, having 54 pigs left. And the problem was I couldn't sell any more piglets. I was going to buy another load, but couldn't sell any more because nobody could find butcher spots. Now I went and one of the first things I did is I went and I got 10 butcher spots at a USDA slaughterhouse that I'm familiar with in Massachusetts. It's only a 2-hour ride from my house.
Right.
So 10 butcher spots for 10 pigs every month. I just said, for the next 2 years, 10 butcher spots. Let's just do it because then they'd put me in. So we actually got really lucky because I just made that phone call, made that appointment, and a good friend of mine is a real good friend with the guy that owns it, and he's like, he wouldn't do it because he didn't really know who I was, but as soon as I mentioned my friend's name, he's like, yeah, that's cool. Okay. So reputation is is very worthwhile everywhere, even, and they're all normies.
Absolutely.
Guys.
I mean, reputation has kept people alive in the libertarian community here in New Hampshire. people have, they've fallen upon hard times and they were loaned money or whatever, and it was solely on the basis of their reputation that they weren't ostracized from the community for one thing or another. Reputation is extremely important.
Yep. So
don't screw up.
So, and if you do, just make it right.
Exactly.
I mean, it's actually
apologize and make it right.
It is way better to admit to your screw up, and even if you can't make it right, and you just at least, I mean, let's say you screw up a $50,000 car, right? Because you smash into it, and maybe, you did it with a tractor that has no insurance, or your horse, or whatever,
someone hit your car today.
No, someone hit Ian's car today. The Shire Free Church's car today.
Fair point.
Somebody backed into it a little. It's got a little ding in it, but I have her contact information, and we're going to see if we can handle that one voluntarily.
If you can't make it right monetarily, at least admit your mistake. And, if you can't make it right, you can always ask for forgiveness. So anyways, getting back to what I did, I wintered 50 some odd pigs, and I sent them to the butcher house, and we've been feeding a free steak. We've been feeding people all over New Hampshire. Actually, I got people coming up from Mass that are getting the pigs, people coming from Maine getting the meat. So it's been pretty awesome. And we did buy a lot of the butchering stuff, and we butchered a lot of our own pigs. We had sold pigs to a bunch of people in the community, and they came back, and we went and butchered pigs at their houses. We butchered some pigs back at my house, and we set up, throw all the stuff in a trailer and do it. And we had families butchering their own pigs. Mom, dad, couple of kids doing all the work, and they raised their own pigs. So it was a good confidence builder. And then I built myself a freezer I can slide in the back of my truck because can't find a refrigerated truck, and there's another scarce thing. And then
let's explain to people why this is all necessary. I assume most people have no idea what these factory farms like Tyson owns are actually like. I mean, some of these,
right? They don't.
They're horrific. They pump these animals full of steroids to the extent that the chickens can't even walk. They put them in cages that don't really fit in. They do the same with all of their animals.
They make their pigs anemic. That's why they came up with the propaganda pork, the other white meat, because when you take 4,000 hogs and you raise them in a 10-acre barn at perfect humidity, perfect temperature, and no light, they actually have to give them a synthetic iron supplement to keep them alive. And when my pigs are raised on dirt, and Bardo's pigs are raised on dirt in a forest, and pigs need to eat dirt. And they need to eat different dirt. They can't keep eating the same dirt.
Pigs eat dirt?
And they eat dirt. They eat roots, they eat dirt, and that's how they get iron. And actually, our soil in New Hampshire is really high in iron.
Okay.
That's why you see all this red rocks and red clay around here.
Yeah. Don't talk to me about red clay with my basement, man.
You know all about it, yes.
It's really interesting, actually, since we're on that topic. At Bardo, they were telling me how they'll fence off the pigs in one. They'll cut down some trees for lumber, and then they'll fence the pigs off in that area, and the pigs will root out all the tree stumps, and they'll just go in afterwards, and the pigs will have pooped out all the roots that they've eaten and all the dirt they've eaten and made extremely fertile soil, and then they just have to hook a chain to a truck and pull the tree stump away, and they've got perfect pasture, and they move the pigs to the next plot, and they do it again. They have perfectly
they're so awesome. And I made an intentional pig food forest this year. So last fall I planted a bunch of oats and rye and clover, and this spring I planted daikon radishes. And a couple weeks from now, I'm going to have 20 or 30 piglets showed up, and I hope to have a nice lush forest ground full of all kinds of just foliage and radishes, and then whatever else grows wildly also came up, and let them eat it all.
One of the things I love about living in Keene and in New Hampshire in general is that I'm reasonably confident when I go to a locally owned restaurant that the food is locally sourced, which is a huge benefit.
Yeah, they try really hard, like all the restaurants in the Keene area.
Yeah.
They do their best to get as much local food as they possibly can.
Local Burger, for instance, is really good at that. I don't have to worry about them, shipping in packaged meat from Tyson and trying to make burgers out of it. And I don't know if you can taste the difference or not. Who knows? Local Burger has a very distinct taste in and of themselves, but when I got the breakfast sandwich from you yesterday morning, it was some of the best sausage I've ever eaten. I mean, and the portion was enormous. It wasn't one of those little tiny, perfectly cut sausage patties that you get from whatever sausage company escapes me at the moment. It was an
Jimmy Dean, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. It was
no
an actual
nitrates. And like one of the girls working with me is like, "What do you got for seasoning?" And I'm like, "I don't use any seasoning."
Yeah, it wasn't needed.
So I feed the pigs like brewer's grain from a local brewery. I do buy some local non-GMO corn from actually a farmer in Massachusetts I've known for years. And we've get eggs from a Pete and Jerry's egg raiser. They're organic and like cracked and missized eggs for the pigs. And we get milk from a couple of different Hood and Smithfield. They're an organic one, and we get yogurt from them sometime. And then we got a bunch of Shaw's restaurants. We got a bunch of produce and fruit and vegetables and all kinds of stuff for them.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your hard work, Jay, man. People like me, we appreciate it because I'm not going to get out there and raise my own pigs. More coming up from Fork Fest. It's Free Talk Live.
A newly recruited search and rescue officer, Marshall Hunter was resigned to a life of rescuing wayward spacefarers and derelict satellites. But when a billionaire couple goes missing, his own ship is disabled during the rescue. With communication satellites suddenly failing and lunar mineral shipments disappearing in transit, the crew suspects it's more than a coincidence, and Hunter must choose between salvation and sacrifice to save his crewmates and their civilian charges. Frontier by Patrick Childs and BingBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column.